Don't threaten me with a good time. I'll do it again. I'll do it 3 days in a row. We'll probably see. I'll probably forget I even did that by the time tomorrow rolls around. Welcome to the stream of the stream of the stream. Higurashi time is all the time. It's our normal Tuesday night Higurashi, so just Higurashi tonight. I'm putting aside the other very interesting games we're currently playing just so I can read Higurashi. I'm still dedicated. But we're making good progress. We're making good progress this week, you know? The extra little readings we've been doing. It's too good. I know this for a fact. I know this fact as a fact. Last time we read this last night for a bit, for like an hour. We basically saw Tomoe and what's his face, old man who is in love with Madoka, Tomoe's sister. But you called her into the office. She was thinking she was in trouble or being reprimanded or something. He was like, nah, man. Our wedding is like really near close by. The date is like, what would they say, like within a month or whatever? Fucking insane. And he is like, well, because we're doing that, we basically needed to cut corners. So could you like do our wedding invitations or whatever? And she's like, I cannot fucking believe you. I cannot fucking believe you. He's like, I'll bribe you with a ring. I'll buy you a ring. And she's like, yeah, but like a ring is like has like important significance. But then in her head, she's like, also a ring is like a ring. And then prior to that, there was more important things. The discussion between Natsui and her friend Chisato. They hashed it out there at the hospital. Chisato busted in while Natsui and fucking Tomoe were discussing things. Chisato busted in and was like, you can't be like doing this. And so they had a heart-to-heart. And that was basically in the hour. All that took place in the hour yesterday. Are we in? We're in 6. So now we're going to read. Anyway, that back and forth question and answer exchange continued for a while longer. In the end, of course, Tomoe couldn't stand Yamaoki looking down on her with that miserable face, so she had no choice but to make a few suggestions to him. She wasn't particularly confident on the subject of fashion, but she was able to make a few small recommendations regarding Madoka's taste based on the time they lived together. Oh yeah, so that was the other thing. He was like, also, can you help me like pick out what ring Madoka would like? Which, kind of a bum move on, in my opinion, on this guy's part. I'm, now, definitely don't take my word as like gospel here, because far be it from me to be the one who gives any type of advice that has anything to do with relationships. We know that's just asking for trouble, honestly, seemingly. But I'm pretty sure, and I'm of the progressive mindset, that unless the person you're with truly says, I do not care about a ring, or I don't care what kind of ring I get, and they say it and they truly mean it. If they actually care about the ring, and I'm not shitting on people, anyone who wants a nice ring when they get married, proposed to, whatever the case may be, I'm very much of the mindset that if you're the one who's like, I want a ring, and it matters to me, that's great for you. I think you should be ready and be willing and ready to tell the person who is buying the ring what kind of ring you want. To me, don't leave any guesswork. Don't leave any guessing, any potential for messing up, for screwing up, for whatever. If you actually care about the ring part of this whole thing, and you're like, I really care about the ring thing, and I want a ring I like, and this is going to be, in theory, the ring for the rest of my life kind of thing, if that matters to you, it should just be like, I mean, I get culture-wise, and also this is like a year, this is what, this is years and years ago in the timeline, so like, again, I think it is slightly more, I don't even think it's super progressive, but I think it's somewhat progressive at this point, and I think most people are probably in agreement with what I'm saying. Just tell the person what ring you want. It can still be a surprise down the line, but just like, when you already know, like, obviously when you're in a relationship, you know if you're getting to like that kind of point or whatever. And then just be like, hey, if and when this kind of moment ever pops up, these are, even if it's like, these are the types of rings I like. Don't leave any guesswork, though. That's your unsolicited relationship tied advice I have to give to you. In my humble opinion. Anyway. However, there was no guarantee that her tastes from back before she left home were still the same as today. Oh my, you've been a great help. Are you really okay without your share? I'm fine. Sorry, adjusting audio just slightly. So, was that all you wanted to ask of me? If that's the case, it's about time for me to... How is the progress on your investigation? Huh? Tomoe had already begun to stand up from the sofa, but she couldn't come up with a quick reply, so she remained there, half sitting, staring at Yamaoki. He took a seat on the sofa and gathered his documents, while turning to her with the same easygoing face as before. I see. So that's why he called me here. Tomoe bitterly smiled to herself at this roundabout way of bringing her here. Dispelling the tension and alertness with a completely unrelated conversation was probably his way of demonstrating he had no hostility or ill will, but that seemed a bit overly considerate. Even if he hadn't done that, Tomoe trusted Yamaoki. It's just that she couldn't express it due to various circumstances. Yamaoki just asked about the investigation. It was clear he wasn't referring to the joint headquarters investigation she was involved in as a public relations officer. He must have been referring to the secret investigation she was conducting with Fujita and the other detectives. Was it Fujita-kun who told him? Or maybe Hanada-kun? But he didn't ask them to stop, so it didn't feel right to blame them. In fact, their own circumstances were their top priority, so she warned them that, warned them they could drop it anytime if they needed to. Still, in a rough sense, Yamaoki had tolerated Tomoe and her cohort's actions up until now. And the reason he brought her here to ask about it was because they had made some progress. Was it because they had made some progress, or maybe something went wrong? I'm sorry for not letting you know about this. I understand what a breach of authority it is for National Police Agency staff to assign work to precinct detectives. Absolutely. And not only that, but it's disrespectful to Joint Investigation Headquarters. So, could it be that someone lodged a complaint? If that's the case, I should bear the responsibility alone. Please be gentle with Fujita-kun and the others. No need to jump to conclusions. What was that laugh? Neither Yamamura nor I have any intention of blaming you for it. It seems that nobody else in the station has noticed your activities. Thank goodness. Tomoe put a hand on her chest as she breathed a sigh of relief. Unlike Tomoe, Fujita and Hanada had families to worry about. There was nothing admirable about letting them get punished. However,
はい。
yes,
せっかく君が大掛かりに立ち回って科警研まで巻き込んだ肝入りの捜査本部なのだ。
you're involved in a large-scale effort with Investigation HQ that even extends as far as NRIPS.
仕切るお偉方にも説明すれば捜査員を一挙動員することは可能だし、まして県警の連中は君に好意的だ。
If you explain the situation to the higher-ups, it'd be possible to act as an investigator. Plus, you're on good terms with the prefectural police.
彼らを活用して動いた方が効率も良く、何かと便利ではないのか。
Wouldn't it be more efficient and convenient to act through them?
ええ。実は当初はそうするつもりで進めておりました。
Yes, in fact, that's what I was planning to do at first.
ですが、
However, Tomoe sat down on the sofa once again and seemed to resign herself to speaking frankly. Fully explaining the situation would be necessary to gauge Yamaoki's true intentions.
どうやら捜査内容が漏れている疑いがあるのです。
Apparently, there's reason to believe that our investigation content is being leaked.
実際この半年間、私たちへの情報提供者の態度が直前、あるいは直後に急変したりして、情報収集を阻害されることが何度かありました。
In fact, over the last 6 months, the attitude of our sources toward us has drastically changed either just before or after the leaks, so there were times it hindered us from gathering information.
その証拠は
What evidence do you have of this?
こちらです。
Right here.
聞き込みのアポを取った直後にこちらで準備した質問内容と実際の聞き込み時の供述。
This is the content of the questions that were defined at the time of creating the inquiry appointment, and this is the statement at the time of the actual inquiry.
明らかに我々が必要とする情報を第三者が介在して口止めを図った形跡が見られます。
Clearly, this is evidence that the information we needed was being obstructed by a third party. Tomoe spread out her police notebook and explained all the shorthand in her notes to Yamaoki. Officials were attempting to secretly approach people connected to Rena Ryuugu and Nagisa Osaki. Like the truck driver responsible for Nagisa's fatal accident, or hospital officials working at the facility where Yoko Hiranuma was suspected of killing a male student who was hospitalized there. In all cases, the people questioned offered prepared answers like they already knew the content of the questions, and they'd always say they don't remember it with regards to the most important information. And, top of that,
平沼陽子の看護学校時代の親友だった女性。
I identified a woman who was a close friend of Yoko Hiranuma during her nursing school days.
今、行方不明なんです。
And at the moment she seems to be missing. The woman in question apparently met with Yuko Hiranuma, I don't know why the name trips me out so much, a few days before the incident, and they talked about various things. The investigator heard this from one of her work colleagues and immediately tried to contact her, but when they tried visiting her home, she was already gone, allegedly leaving on a trip a few days prior.
それなのに、令状を取って家宅捜索を行った自宅には通帳や印鑑が置きっぱなし。
Nevertheless, when they received a warrant and searched the house, they found her bank book and signature stamps were still in the house.
長期の旅行先にそれらを携帯していないなんて少し考えにくいです。
It was hard to imagine she'd go on a long trip and not bring those with her.
確かに
Indeed.
しかも行き先は不明のままで、有給が終わったその日に退職願いが病院に郵送されてきた。
What's more, her destination remains unknown, and a retirement request was mailed to the hospital on the day her trip was scheduled to end.
退職理由は一身上の都合と言っても、帰省した様子、そして家族に連絡をした形跡等は一切なし。
The reason for her retirement was stated to be personal reasons. However, there's no evidence that she ever returned home or contacted her family.
疑うなという方が無理というものです。
It'd be harder not to doubt this. She was likely silenced by someone, and what's more, it had to have been done by someone with access to police information. It wasn't just Tomoe. Anyone would interpret it that way.
ただ、あからさますぎる隠蔽工作なのが少々気になる。
But it was such an excessively overt act, so it was a little worrisome. Overt act. Maybe it was setting an example, delivering a message not to dig any deeper. But if that's the case, then the culprit clearly doesn't understand Tomoe's way of thinking. She had an intense loathing and desire to fight against people stooping to threats and suppression. Or maybe they anticipated that, and this was part of a trap to lure her father in, trying to make her distrust her fellow officers and limit the scope of her investigation activities.
考えすぎかもしれない。
Maybe I'm overthinking it.
それに
Plus, if she read too deeply into it, she'd only get stuck. But it was certainly true that if she was to indiscriminately disclose all of her official investigation activities, her foes would continue beating her to the punch. And so, Tomoe decided to conduct her own investigation on the side, while handling news correspondence and other public relations work. I'm sorry, I must be I'm stumbling over words. I'm gonna get better. Sorry. I apologize deeply. In light of common sense and discipline, unauthorized activities were never praiseworthy, but even if the project ends with the investigation stalled, ultimately she'd have to take the blame for her big talk.
ならば座して待つよりも前に進んで攻められた方がいい。
So rather than sitting around and waiting, wouldn't it be better to keep going and accept the blame? Although she wasn't confident that thought was coming from anything but desperation.
なるほどな。
I see.
私や山村に黙っていたのもそれが理由かね。
So that's the reason you kept this from Yamamura and me.
味方を疑うのはあまり感心できることじゃありません。
Distrusting your allies is not exactly an admirable trait.
ただ今回の事件には異常な点が多すぎる。
However, there are far too many unusual elements in this investigation.
ただの男子学生と看護師が死んだ事件と片付けるには警察側への干渉力が現状ありすぎます。
There's far too much interference into political activities for this to just be about cleaning up an incident where a male student and a nurse died.
だから信用できる部下と一緒に調べてみたかったのです。
That's why I wanted to have my most trusted subordinates look into it with me.
私は君にとってその信頼できる人間ではなかったということか。
So I didn't meet your qualifications as a trustworthy person.
それは申し訳なかったな。
Terribly sorry about that.
あ、いえ、そうじゃなくて。
Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that. This was Yamaoki. If she had asked for his cooperation, he surely would have provided appropriate manpower and personal connections. However, if the enemy really was a police officer, that would be taking a big risk. The larger scale their activities, the easier they are to detect. The same was true for Yamamura, a section chief of the 1st Division, and for Dojima, section chief of the 1st Division at Prefectural Police. Due to those concerns, Tomoe was hesitant to tell them about it until now.
ですが、勝手な期待になって申し訳ありませんが、山沖さんたちならきっと何らかの形で気づかれると思っていました。
Still, I'm sorry for making arbitrary assumptions, but I figured you and others would notice at some point anyhow.
そして、私たちがあなた方に話さない理由も理解してくださると。
I hope you can understand why we didn't talk to you about it.
だから、今日それをお尋ねになるということは、何か動きがあった。そう考えてよろしいのでしょうか。
And so, if you're asking about it today, I mean something must have happened, I assume.
動きか。
You could say something happened.
その信用できる部下の藤田君から私に話があってな。
Your trusted subordinate Fujita-kun came and spoke to me. Yamaoki's smile suddenly vanished and his expression changed. Then he set the documents in his hand aside, leaned slightly forward, and began to speak up.
君には内密にと前置きした上で私に頭を下げてきた。
He bowed his head to me, asking me to keep this a secret from you.
どんな理由でもいい。南警部が今回の別行動的な捜査から外れるよう説得してくれと。
He told me to use whatever reasons I could think of and persuade you to take yourself off of this outside investigation.
それを受けて君に本意の意思があるのか。ここで確かめておきたいと思ってね。
I accepted, and figured I'd check to see if you had any intention of changing your mind.
え？
Huh?
断っておくが彼は君を裏切ったわけではない。
I assure you, he didn't betray you.
そして君の依頼した捜査内容に不満を持っているわけでもない。
I assure you, he didn't betray. Oh, and it's. I look away for a second. And it's not that he's dissatisfied with the content of the investigation you requested.
むしろ彼は君のことを心配して 悩んだ末に言ってきたのだ。
In fact, he said he was deeply worried about you and agonized before making his decision.
それは理解してやってくれ。
Please try to understand that much.
どういうことですか？
What do you mean by that? Though she could understand, she still couldn't wipe away her distrust, so she tried to suppress the feelings in her voice as she asked that. Fujita was roughly the same age as her, so he was one of the most friendly and trustworthy detectives within Kakuji Station. Though he was a little clumsy and weak-kneed, he came from an athletic background, so he put all his heart into his work. He was a good young man with strong convictions and a solid understanding of right and wrong. So why would he try to put a stop to her investigation?
いや、勘違いするな、Tomoe君。
Don't get the wrong idea, Tomoe-kun.
捜査自体は藤田君と花田君、それに一家でも信用できる連中を巻き込んで継続の予定だ。
The investigation will still continue under Fujita-kun, Hanada-kun, and anyone else you trust in the First Division.
山村も指揮を受け継ぐことについてはすでに了承している。
Yamamura already agreed to take over command.
だったらどうして私だけ？
Then why am I being singled out?
藤田君の言うには、このままだと君が命を落としかねないとな。
Fujita-kun said that if things continue as they are, this case could cost you your life.
現場で動いているからこそ、そういった空気を敏感に感じ取っているのだろう。
He's the one acting on site, so he's likely more sensitive to the atmosphere of the situation.
私も実はそれに同意見だ。
And I also agree with his assessment.
警察官である以上、危険は常にあるものです。
There's always risk involved with being a police officer.
それに、それを言うならむしろ現場の藤田君たちの方が危ないはずです。
Besides, even if you say that, Fujita-kun and his colleagues acting in the field are in far greater danger.
彼らなら命を落としてもいいってあなたはおっしゃるんですか？
Are you saying it's more acceptable to let those men die?
いや、危険なのはTomoe君、君の方だ。
No. You're the one in the greatest danger, Tomoe-kun.
私が敵の頭なら真っ先に狙うことを考えるほどにな。
If I were in the enemy's shoes, you'd be my first target.
君が女性であってもそうでなかったとしても。
The fact that you're a woman has nothing to do with it. Yamoki continued his explanation, unceremoniously refuting the argument Tomoe brought up.
そもそも捜査員は人間の体で言えば手足。これはヒゲでも何でもなく事実だ。
If we think of investigators as parts of the human body, they're the arms and legs. That's not belittling them, it's a fact.
故に傷ついても、あるいは失われても、別の部位がそれにとって変わることができる。
So, even if they're hurt or lost, they can be replaced.
だが、頭や心臓、その他生命に必要な器官は、それが傷つくだけで、体全域の機能が低下し、あるいは停止する。
But if the head, the heart, or other vital organs are damaged, then the entire body deteriorates, or even shuts down.
ならば、そこを狙えばいいと考えるのは、当然の発想だと思うがね。
So naturally, those make prime targets.
買いかぶりもいいところです。
You're thinking too highly of me.
第一、私は
First off, I'm...
広報室から出張ってきているだけの報道対応係長。
You're just the chief of news correspondence on a business trip on behalf of the Public Relations Office.
肩書きは確かにそうだが、今君がいなくなれば捜査本部はどうなるかね。
It's true that's just a title, but where do you think Investigative HQ would be without you?
どんなに強力な歯車で構成された機械回路でも、潤滑油がなければいずれ錆びて全体の動きがストップするものだ。
No matter how strong the gears in a machine are, without proper lubrication they'll eventually rust, and the whole mechanism will halt.
その中身が複雑になればなるほどにね。
And the more complex the inner workings, the more likely that's the case. She recalled what Fujita said before.
たまには休んだ方がいいですよ。
You need to get some rest once in a while.
あなたが今倒れたら、科警研と現場の連中が衝突して、プロジェクトが吹っ飛びますからね。
If you collapsed right now, all the NRIPS guys and the people in the field would clash, and this project would disappear. In fact, even now, relationships between the dissatisfied on-scene investigators and the arrogant NRIPS staff, who care nothing for that, were already difficult to repair. In the unlikely event that the project facilitator, Tomoe, were to die or otherwise be removed from the investigation, Section Chief Dojima from the 1st Division at Prefectural Police would probably end up completely spoiling relations with NRIPS. Thus, some of the people with negative feelings or open opposition to the project had already even slandered Tomoe to upper management.
畑副所長もその中の一人だって言ってたっけ?
I think they said Deputy Chief Hata was one of them. Tomoe was really surprised when she heard it from Public Relations Director Maino and the informant Arakawa. Surprised that there were people out there who couldn't understand the nature of the police, no matter how old they got. Be that as it may, Tomoe at least partially understood what sort of role she had to play in her current position. That's why she was grateful for the concern Yamaoki and the others were showing her, and she felt guilty about it.
協力してくださった皆さんには本当に頭が下がる思いです。
I truly have great respect for everyone offering their cooperation.
私が言い出したプロジェクトに忙しい中、いろんな不平不満も飲み込んで力を貸してくださる。
Though they've been very busy and had plenty of reasons to complain, they swallowed it down and continue to support this project of mine.
もったいないことです。
They're too good for me.
Tomoe-kun.
Tomoe-kun.
ですが、いえ、だからこそ私はこのまま真相に近づかないまま終わりたくないんです。
But, no, precisely because of that, I don't want this to end without getting us any closer to the truth.
科警研はお手柄顔で凱旋するかもしれませんが、これで犯人の姿が判明せずに閉じてしまったら、せっかくの皆さんの行為を無下にしてしまうことにもなりかねない。
NRIPS may treat this as a triumph even if we fail, but it would be squandering the consideration everyone has shown if this case gets closed without us identifying the culprit.
残った時間はもうそれほどありません。
We don't have much time left.
多少強引でも敵の本質に近づく努力をし続けることで行き詰まっている現状を打破できるかもしれない。
Even if it's a bit aggressive, by continuing to work toward the true nature of our enemy, we may be able to break out of the deadlock we're in right now.
だから
So,
そのためなら自らの命も危険にさらすと。
you're willing to risk your life for that?
私も警察の端くれです。
That's my duty as a police officer.
危険は覚悟の上で敵が私を狙ってくれるのならなおのこと好都合です。
I'm prepared for the danger. Even if the foe is aiming for me, that makes it all the more convenient.
それが捜査の突破口を開くことになり、そして私の後を引き継いだ誰かが犯人を捕まえてくれる。
That may open the door for this investigation, so someone taking over after me will be able to catch a criminal.
そのためのおとり役であれば喜んで引き受けるつもりです。
If I have to play the part of the decoy to make that happen, I'll gladly step up.
そして君は父と同じ末路に至る。
And meet the same fate as your father?
親子二代、正義に準じて死す。
Two generations sacrificing themselves for the sake of justice.
救われん話だと思わんかね。
I don't see how that helps anyone.
いや、君はそれでも満足だろう。
No, you may still be content with that.
信じるままやりたいように生き、勝手にのたれ死ぬ。
Living according to your beliefs and dying in a gutter.
警察官としての信念を抱きながら思い残すことなく生きるだろう。
Clinging to your convictions as a police officer and passing on with no regrets.
だが、残された家族、まどか君は
But what are the
どうなる？
But what are the family you leave behind? What of Madoka-kun?
それは
Well, Tomoe's little sister was precious to her. There was no way she hadn't imagined what Madoka's life would be like after her death. Madoka would be in tears if anything happened to her. No, she'd be enraged. She'd blame herself for her sister's shallow foolishness and be overcome with grief. But even though that would be painful and heartbreaking for a single person, two people together might be able to endure it. More important than oneself is the encouragement and comfort provided by your loved ones, so surely.
あの子にはあなたがいるじゃないですか。
That girl has you, doesn't she?
まどかは見かけ以上に強い子ですから、たとえ私に何があってもあなたがいればきっと 立ち直ってくれます。
Madoka is stronger than she looks. No matter what happens to me, she'll be able to recover as long as you're there for her.
私はそう信じています。
That's what I believe.
勝手な思い込みだな。
That's a selfish assumption.
いや、もはや思い上がりと言うべきだろう。
No, I dare call it arrogant.
急に結婚を認める気になったのも、あるいはそんなところか。
Was something like that the reason you suddenly decided to accept our marriage? Got her.
半年間、一体何を学んできたのだ。
Just what on earth have you learned in this past half a year?
ここに戻ってきた時、私に向かって言ったことを思い出してみたまえ。
Remember what you first said to me when you came back here?
それは
That's...
感情的な復讐心や自己満足の行いは自分の失敗を認めたくないという見苦しさの産物です。
Emotion-fueled revenge and the pursuit of self-interest are the detestable products of one who refuses to acknowledge their own failures.
自分は正しいと一人で思い込んで誰にも頼らず誰の言葉にも耳を貸さない独りよがりの未熟なまがいものの正義です。
I had a foolish, immature, and misguided view of justice. I thought myself the only one correct and refused to listen to or rely on anyone else.
でもそれでは本当の悪には勝てない。
But that way of thinking can't defeat true evil.
いえ、戦えない。
No, can't even fight it.
こちらが犯罪を取り締まるためあらゆる手段と知識を蓄えているように相手も同様の準備をしてこちらを叩き潰そうとその武器を磨いている。
Though we have the knowledge and means to crack down on crime, our adversaries are polishing their weapons and making preparations of their own.
そんな奴らに一人でできることなんてたかが知れています。
I realize now that those sorts of people can't be overcome on my own.
ええ、確かに私はそう言いました。
Yes, I certainly did say that.
みんなの力を合わせて当たることこそが重要だと。
I think everyone working together is critical to achieving success.
そして私は幸運にもたくさんの人の力を借りることができました。
And I've been fortunate to have the help of so many people.
か。
Fortunate, huh? Yamoki felt that Tomoe achieved results through effort rather than talent, and liked that part of her personality. However, he knew that sort of kindness and selflessness could sometimes lead to self-sacrifice. Irresponsible people are untrustworthy, but a person shouldering too much responsibility is dangerous. They have a strong tendency to narrow their horizons so tightly that they don't even realize they're heading to ruin. Tomoe today was at the very extreme end of that, and that's why Yamoki felt like he needed to stop her.
私が今ここにいるのはたくさんの人たちのおかげです。
I've reached where I am today thanks to the help of so many people.
みんな忙しい中でも私に力を貸してくれていろんな期待を託してくれている。
Everyone always lent me their support, even when they were busy. They entrusted me with all sorts of expectations.
私はそれに応える義務がある。
So, I have an obligation to pay them back.
そう考えるのは間違っていますか？
Is it so wrong to think so?
故に彼らに貢献するべく、そして期待に応えるべく自分の命を投げ出すか。
So, to pay them back and live up to their expectations, you intend to throw your life away?
それを聞いて喜ぶ奴がどこにいる。
Who would be happy to hear that?
少なくとも肉親、知人でそれを肯定する奴がいるとでも。
Do you have even a single relative or acquaintance who would attest to that?
ならば君は逆の立場になっても相手に対してそう思うのかね。
Wouldn't you feel the same way if it happened to someone else in the same position?
死して立派な奴だったと。
You'd say we lost a good man.
巴君、
Tomoe-kun,
自分の命を自分だけのものと考えるな。
don't think of your life as yours alone. Don't think of your life as
誰かに
yourself.
支えられて
Slurred right through that.
誰かに助けられて人生を送ってきたはずだ。
You've lived your life with the aid and support of so many people.
そしてそれと同時に君はそれぞれの夢や思いを託されてその期待に応えるべく今日まで頑張ってきたのだろう。
And at the same time, you've been entrusted with their thoughts and dreams. You've been working hard to meet their expectations, right?
たとえ泥水をすすって地獄にまみれようとも必死に生きることも戦いだ。
Even if it means crawling through the mud and being humiliated, you desperately fight to go on living.
にもかかわらず勝手に自ら幕を閉じて君はどう言い訳をするつもりだ。
Despite that, what excuse do you have for selfishly closing the curtain on your life so quickly?
それは
Well, as to be expected, Tomoe had nothing to say to that, so she kept quiet. Yamaoki pulled out a cigarette to calm his heated emotions, then lightly turned his head to the side for a smoke before continuing.
言わずもがなと思って黙ってきたがあえて伝えよう。
I feel this is better left unsaid, but I'll tell you anyway.
君は今回捨て身でこのプロジェクトに刑事生命をかけたと言っていたな。
You told me you were beating your entire life as a detective on this project. Betting.
もし失敗すれば監職行きあるいは失職も覚悟してと。
You said if this fails, you're prepared to be demoted to a meaningless post, or even to be laid off. I apologize for all the mistakes I'm making while reading. It's, if you were grading me tonight on my reading ability, I deserve all the Fs. I don't know what's
そ
up
れ
with
だ
me.
から多少の無茶や衝突も大したことではないと開き直っているのかもしれん。
That's why you're so open to the idea of behaving recklessly.
だが現実は違うぞ。
But the reality is different. Huh?
君が3ヶ月以内に解決してみせると豪語した番組企画のことだ。
When you wrote up the schedule for this project, you said it'd be solved in 3 months.
すでに前のは上層部と局のお偉方に当初の目的が達成できなかった時の対処案を提出している。
Mahino has already begun submitting a plan to upper management and other bureaucrats detailing how we intend to proceed even after failing to achieve that original goal.
新しい捜査形態を体系づけた立役者の一人として君は東京に凱旋するという筋書きでな。
As one of the key players in this new form of investigation, you'll have to return to Tokyo. That's how it'll play out.
科検警の連中の動きを逆に利用したわけだ。
NRIPS activities will have been used against them.
テレビ局側の大筋でその代替案に賛成らしい。
And the TV stations seem to be in favor of that alternative approach.
そんな
It can't be. The story was completely new to Tomoe, so of course she gazed back at Yamaoki with her eyes wide open. She already knew that Ochi from NRIPS was working with the 2nd Division in order to protect himself, but she was surprised to learn that Detective Mahino was that willing to rack his brains so far to protect her.
どうしてそこまで
Why go so far?
奴も長い間理解者に恵まれず苦労した口だからな。
Because he too had worked for a long time without having anyone to understand him.
たった一度のことで信頼できる部下を手放すような真似はしない。
He's not one
とい
to
うことだ。
he's not one to let a reliable subordinate go.
前のにとっては成功や失敗よりもむしろ君がこのプロジェクトで何らかを学び取り経験を得ることこそを求めていた。
For Mahino wasn't about success or failure. He wanted you to learn something and gain experience from this project.
結果など関係なくその過程が重要だった。
The process you went through is valuable, regardless of the outcome.
だからこそ奴は支援する気になったのだ。
That's why I wanted to help you.
学習と経験
Learning and gaining experience? She felt discomfort at hearing those words, her eyes widening. Part of it was how she was dancing to a completely different tune than her original intentions, but more so that light disregard for the work on scene which ran completely contrary to her beliefs.
それって 科警研の人たちと同じということですか？
Then you're saying it's just like the folks at NRIPS?
人が死んでいるんですよ。
People are dead, you know?
実際に不幸になった人がいるのに、それをテストケースなんて。
Even though there are people out there truly suffering, it's nothing but a test case?
確かにある意味ではそうかもしれん。
In a sense, you might say that is indeed the case.
控えめに言っても良心的な話ではない。
It's not a conscientious perspective, to put it mildly.
だが机上の空論で固まった人間を作り出さないためには、あえてみんなが目を背ける現実で苦労させることも必要だ。
But, in order to avoid creating people fixated on unpracticed theories, it's necessary to make them face a difficult reality that everyone else would turn away from.
違うかね。
Or do you disagree?
まして君は当初の目的を外れたとはいえ、プロファイリングの効果を実際に示してみせた。
In fact, even if you failed at your initial goal, you really have shown the benefits of profiling techniques.
手柄は確かに科警研だが、各方面を調整して上層部を解き伏せ、形として組み上げた本当の立役者が誰なのか、みんな分かっている。
NRIPS will certainly take credit, but everyone knows the real leading figure who persuaded upper management to make this project happen and led the endeavor.
出世の評価として提示できないのは残念な話だがな。
It's a pity this couldn't result in career advancement.
出世なんて私は。
My career advancement doesn't...
Tomoe君、出世を軽く思うな。
Tomoe-kun, don't think lightly of career advancement.
正しいこと、自分の信じることを他人に説得し、協力を取り付けるために必要なのは肩書きと名声だ。
A title and reputation are necessary to convince others that believing in you is the right thing to do.
警察と正義を信じたいのならば偉くなれ。
If you want to believe in the police and injustice, achieve greatness.
たとえあざとく思われようとも一切気にしない勇気を持つんだ。
Even if your thoughts are unscrupulous, have the courage to disregard it.
それが君の理想に近づく最善手だと私は信じている。
I believe that's the best way to approach your ideals.
山沖さん。
Yamaoki-san. She remembered half a year ago. When Tomoe heard the same thing back then, she became angry and rejected the thoughts of Yamaoki and the others. She didn't become a police officer for prestige. She didn't pursue the associate career path seeking achievements. Even now, that feeling hadn't wavered. So when she first transferred to the National Police Agency and saw how the people there were subject to a demerit system based on personal accomplishments, deep in her heart, Tomoe despised it. However, what she felt in the past 6 months while trying to actualize her ideals was the need to prove their legitimacy. Her educational background, her achievements at work, her social standing, personality connections, in a sense, those old-fashioned factors often played a key role. If Tomoe hadn't gone to Kashima University, the secretariat of the commissioner would never have deigned to listen to her at all. If her former boss hadn't accumulated an enormous amount of investigation data and know-how from famous theorists, she never would have been able to persuade NRIPS or the detective in the field. Nothing can be shaped by thoughts alone, and she knew that she couldn't accomplish anything all on her own. That was an unmistakable fact. What she was doing now was a result of all the help and support she received from so many other people. Tomoe was painfully aware of that.
確かに捜査に大小も軽重もない。
It's sure that no investigation is more or less important than any other.
だが藤田君は、いや、この書き打ち書の捜査員はみんな君に期待しているのだ。
But, Fujita-kun, no. Every single investigator at Kakuichi Station is counting on you.
これだけ小さな警察署でさえ変えられる能力を持った人材だ。
To show that even at this small police station we have talented people with power to make change.
もしもこのまま出世して偉くなれば、きっと自分たちが警察官であることを誇りに思えるくらいに、警察の組織に刺激を与えてくれる存在になってくれるとな。
If this succeeds, if you achieve greatness, I'm sure it'll make them proud to be police officers, and serve as an inspiration to all other police organizations.
だからこそみんな君に力を貸している。
That's why everyone is lending you their strength.
そして危ない橋ならば自分たちがと引き受ける気にもなる。
And even if it's dangerous, and even if it's a dangerous bridge, they're willing to cross it.
その思いは決して軽いものではないぞ。
So don't take those feelings lightly.
分かっています。
I understand that.
いえ、分かりたいと思っています。
No, I think I've wanted to understand.
いつも、ずっと。
For so long, always. When she felt gratitude for the depth of their feelings, sometimes it made Tomoe's eyes so heated she wanted to cry. She truly was blessed. Deep in her heart, she felt that was the truth. When Tomoe lost her parents and then her sister left her, she thought no woman could feel as miserable as she did, but she no longer felt that way.
私は本当に幸せ者だと思います。
I think I really am fortunate.
それだけは分かっているんです。
At least that much I understand.
でも、
But... Yes?
変な言い方を許してください。
Please forgive me if this is a weird thing to say.
それを感じれば感じるほど、私は正義とは一体何なのか分からなくなるんです。
But the more I feel it, the less I understand what justice truly is.
自分だけの正義は勝手な自己満足でしかない。
Carrying out your own personal justice is nothing but self-satisfaction.
だから他の人たちを巻き込んで正義を果たそうと願う。
That's why you ask other people to be involved in delivering justice.
でもたくさんの人たちの力添えを感じれば感じるほど、自分の行いに対する責任と代償が自分一人では済まないと思って、
But the more I...
正直怖くなります。
But the more I accept the help of so many people, the more I feel the responsibility and cost of my actions spread to others. Honestly, it's frightening.
だからつい自制を考えてしまいたくなる。
So, I want to think about self-control.
矛盾してますよね、これって。
It's a total contradiction, right? Thinking about it now, her desperate attitude and thoughts may have been trying to get rid of her hesitation. And if so, then she truly was beyond hope, just as Yamaoki said. With that in mind, Tomoe masochistically smiled while running her fingers through her hair.
Tomoe-kun.
Tomoe-kun.
ひょっとすると、だからこそ父は自己満足を承知で一人だけの正義を貫いたのでしょうか。
Maybe that's why my father accepted the selfishness of delivering justice on his own.
その結果として友人の思いに背き、家族さえも犠牲にした。
And as a result, he disregarded the feelings of friends and even sacrificed his family.
一切のしがらみから自由に行動するため、それが父なりの正義だった。
In order to act freely, of all ties of obligation, that was how my father saw justice.
だけど父のそんな思いは組織にとってただの独りよがりな愚かなものだったのでしょうか。
But were his feelings foolish and selfish in the eyes of the police?
それは
Well...
前野さん、広報室長が以前話してくれたのです。
Minai-san, the director of public relations, told me once before.
あの人は新人の頃公安にいて、その指導教官がMinai警部補だったと。
He was in public security back when he was a newcomer, and his supervisor was Deputy Inspector Minai.
独自に行動することが多く、現場の人たちや上司はいつも振り回されていたそうですね。
He often acted independently, and it seems his superiors and colleagues in the field were always twisted around his finger. Of course, that grandstanding was probably forgiven on account of his talent, but Tomoe thought that the fact that it existed at all was an organizational problem, in some ways may have been even harmful. In fact, she didn't think much of her father's behavior in his lifetime. She even witnessed a few people connected to the police cursing him from the shadows at his own funeral.
あのしゃべりガラスが
That damn chatterbox.
私、父を尊敬していました。
I respected my father,
今でもその気持ちに変わりはありません。
and even now, that feeling hasn't changed.
ですが山沖さん、あなたに私の行き過ぎを注意されて、私自身それが最もだと思うと、父の行いは間違っていたんだろうかと不安になるんです。
But Yamaoki-san, I felt you were right when you warned me not to go too far in my actions, and that made me wonder if my father's actions were in the wrong, and it made me uneasy.
父はもっと家庭を顧みて 危険を冒すことなく振る舞うべきであったのではないかと。
Should he have avoided taking such extreme risks and looked after his family more?
すみません。こんなことを言うつもりじゃなかったのですが。
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring this up.
失礼します。
Please, forgive me. After saying that, Tomoe forced a smile as she rose to her feet, then deeply bowed down to apologize, and then she turned around and reached for the doorknob. But then...
ローエル事件を知っているか?
Are you familiar with the Lowell incident?
え?
Huh?
はい。
Yes. Tomoe's eyes opened wide as she turned back and nodded, with her hand still on the doorknob. For the longest time, Yamoki would go quiet or dodge the question anytime she broached the topic of her father, so she gave up trying, thinking the conversation would end like always. However,
長い話になるかもしれん。
this may be a long story.
忙しくないとは思わないが、もう少し私に付き合ってもらえるかな。
I'm sure you're busy, but could you spare a little more of your time? Yamoki's eyes urged her to come back as he said that. Tomoe forgot to even reply and quickly took a seat on the sofa, then desperately suppressed her rising palpitations as she turned towards Yamoki and leaned forward.
はいさん、Minaiさん。
Son? Minai-san?
Eh?
Huh? When she came back to her senses and looked at her side, Hinata was sitting in the driver's seat beside her, glancing at her with a dubious look on his face. He immediately turned forward and focused on the road, but he spoke to her in a caring tone.
すみません。
Sorry.
さっきからずっと黙って、なんだか辛そうな顔をしていましたから。
You've been quiet for a while now, and you looked upset.
何か悩み事でもあったんですか?
Is something bothering you?
別に。
No, not really.
ただちょっと眠気がね。
I'm just a little sleepy.
ああ、運転は俺に任せてもらって結構ですから。
Okay, then you can leave the driving to me.
着いたら起こしますんで、それまではゆっくり寝ていてください。
I'll wake you up when we get there, so please get some rest in the meantime.
ありがとう。
Yeah, thanks. Tomoe pulled the reclining lever as she said that and lowered the backrest of the passenger seat. Then she let out a sigh and leaned her head against the headrest. She was, in fact, quite tired. She had actually been underslept for a while now, so she'd be able to quickly fall sound asleep if she wanted to. However, she had far too many thoughts spinning around her head, so she wasn't interested in sleep.
警察現代史のおさらいになるかもしれんが、まずは事件のあらましから話そう。
This may be a recap of modern police history, but let's start with a breakdown of the case.
13年前の昭和45年、とある精神疾患で入院していた患者が異常行動を起こし、その果てに屋上から飛び降りて即死した。
13 years ago, in 1970, a patient being hospitalized for a certain mental illness began behaving erratically. As a result, he jumped off the roof and died immediately.
はい。よく知っています。
Yes, I know that much. There was no shortage of material covering the case since it was a highly topical incident that happened in the modern era. In fact, Tomoe was personally interested in the matter, so she studied the case outline. At the time, the major ruling party had overwhelming power in the House of Representatives, was on the verge of splitting their majority due to a massive bribery scandal, and the distrust sown from that allowed a newcomer recommended by the opposition party to win the election. A single patient's death was the beginning of a scandal that shook the political world.
で、その異常行動だが、看護師や医師、それに周囲の患者に次々と襲いかかって強靭を振るうといったものでな。
And the erratic behavior included attacking nurses, doctors, and other patients around him one after another.
幸い死者こそ出なかったというのは建前で、実際には患者が2人、その傷が元で死亡している。
Fortunately, no one died in the incident, at least that's the official story, but the truth is 2 patients did die from their wounds. Huh?
報道すると社会的影響が大きいと判断されてな。
According to the report, it was deemed that the social impact would be too large.
一般の人々は他の精神疾患の患者たちに対して差別意識、あるいは 排斥行動に出ないとも限らない。
There was a chance that the general public would begin discriminating against other mentally ill patients, and their actions wouldn't be limited to distancing themselves from them.
そして彼の体を司法解剖した際に脳から異常なほどのアドレナリン興奮物質が発見されたのだ。
And when his body was autopsied, they noticed elevated levels of adrenaline in the subject's brain. That was news to Tomoe, which meant that a strict gag order was put in place, even within the police force.
それを受けてその患者に処方されていた治療薬が何か厚生省と警察庁が主導となって調査が行われた。
In response to that, the Ministry of Health and Welfare and the National Police Agency led an investigation into the therapeutic drug that was prescribed to the patient.
そしてその薬物を構成する成分配列を分析した結果、それは外資系の製薬会社によって提供されたものだと分かったのだよ。
And after analyzing the components of the drug, it was found that it was being provided by a foreign pharmaceutical company.
その製薬会社がローウェル社ですね。
And that pharmaceutical company was Lowell Inc.? Yamoki nodded to Tomoe, then continued.
この国での認可薬には厳格な基準が設けられている。
This country has strict standards that pharmaceutical products must meet before approval.
だが、それは審査段階で危険性を指摘されていながらも、多額の賄賂によって認可を得たものだった。
However, the dangers of this drug were pointed out during the assessment period. It was approved anyway thanks to a large bribe.
故に、ローウェル社は日本国内での薬剤販売を禁止された。
Thanks to that, Lowell Inc. was completely banned from selling drugs in Japan.
そして数年にわたる警察、厚生省、検察庁による合同捜査の末、それを斡旋した厚生省の薬事局の次長が逮捕された。
And after several years of joint investigations between the police, the Ministry of Health and Welfare, and the Public Prosecutor's Office, the Assistant Director of the Pharmaceutical Affairs Department at the Ministry of Health and Welfare was arrested.
その結果、輸入の窓口となっていた製薬会社の幹部、そして当時の薬事審査会の連中はほとんど辞職へと追い込まれていった。
As a result, most of the pharmaceutical company executives involved in imports, and most of the Pharmaceutical Affairs Board review members of the time were forced to resign.
あとはニュースなどで取り上げられている通りだ。
Everything after that is just as you heard on the news. High-risk drugs are being distributed in medical institutions and being prescribed to patients without their consent or the involvement of their families, and causing all sorts of problems. That was bad enough on its own, but the people who were in a position to prevent the problem ignored it in exchange for bribes. Every day and night, TV news reports were pushing for politicians and businessmen to be held accountable, and newspapers and magazines were detailing the corruption and the lives of all the people involved. Political distrust bloomed on a massive scale, and an anti-establishment movement led by students was gaining more and more traction.
でもどうして山沖さんや私の父公安の人たちがその捜査を
But why were people from public security like you and my father involved in the investigation? Public security is not the agency responsible for investigating political or corporate corruption. That would fall more in the public prosecutor's office, under the Special Investigation Department's jurisdiction. Sure, maintaining the integrity of the nation is a principle of public security, but it seemed like they were barking up the wrong tree with the Lowell incident.
戦場において最も兵士たちの敵となりうるものは何だと思うかね。
What do you think is the greatest enemy of soldiers on the battlefield? Huh? The question was so sudden and unexpected that for a moment Tomoe couldn't find an answer, but after seeing that Yamauki's expression was completely serious, she thought it was over.
敵とは脅威となる存在ということですか
By enemy, do you mean any threatening entity?
それなら核とか毒ガスとかの兵器で
If that's the case, I'd say weapons like nukes or poison gas.
違うな。
Wrong.
それは恐怖心だ。
It's fear. Ah, trick question. For any powerful weapon, as long as you know suitable countermeasures are the means to avoid it, it's less of a threat. No matter how overwhelming it may seem, there are ways to neutralize it. But once someone succumbs to fear, that can't be undone so easily. They become terrified of non-existent enemies and traps. or the shock of witnessing death and an attachment to life. Either way, soldiers obsessed by their fear completely lose their fighting spirit, so no matter their numbers, they're nothing more than a disorderly herd of cattle. Thus, maintaining the morale of soldiers is critical in times of war.
ならばそれを取り除いた時、最強の兵士が生まれることになる。
And so, if you can eliminate that, then the strongest possible soldier is born.
経験や性格的なものもあるだろうが、それが物理的に除去できるのであればより効率的だ。
Experience and personality are useful too, but it's more efficient to have their fear physically removed.
アルコールによる酩酊でもその近似の精神状態を作り出すことができるかもしれん。
Inebriation with alcohol can also be used to put them in a similar mental state.
だが他にもっと効果的な手段があるとしたら、それは何だと思う？
But if there were a more effective way of accomplishing that, what do you think it might be?
抗精神薬ですか？
Psychotropic drugs? As soon as that thought came to mind, Tomoe gasped. She heard that drugs and alcohol were being openly used to raise morale during the war. Indeed, if fear can be eliminated, soldiers will literally give up their lives and rise up to confront any dangerous situations. In other words, he was saying the drug in question from the Lowell incident wasn't limited to treatment of mental illness, but actually developed for military use.
まさかそんなこと。
No way. It can't be.
信じられんのも無理はないが、我々は様々な方面からその確たる証拠を掴んでいた。
Believe it or not, we had solid evidence from multiple sources that confirmed it.
しかし、例えば精神疾患の治療を口実にしたとしても、実際に人間をサンプルにしてそれらの薬物の効能を実験する機会は少ない。
However, even if treatment of mental illness is being used as a pretense, there are very few opportunities to test the effects of these drugs on human subjects.
さらに自国の一般人に協力を求めて臨床試験を行うことは、倫理的な観点から鑑みてもリスクが大きすぎる。
And what's more, seeking clinical trials from the general public within the country is far too risky from an ethical perspective.
ならば
Therefore,
国内ではなく海外の国、それも生活水準が一定値に達している文明国で臨床実験を行えばいい。
rather than doing it domestically, carry it out overseas, in a country that passes a certain standard of living.
そうすれば国内で行う実験と類似した条件下で詳細なデータを入手しやすくなる。
Doing so would make it easier to obtain detailed clinical data similar to the experiments conducted domestically. A lesson learned from ancient history, conquerors have often used the people of their occupied territories for conducting human experiments. The best way to learn the efficacy of an unknown substance is to actually use it. It's far easier to understand the results of if it's being conducted on a human being, rather than some other animal with unique biology and body structures. But the fact left a black mark on the history of human society. Even if the drug managed to save the lives of many people, it demanded a hefty sacrifice in exchange. Thus, it's natural to face public backlash from both a humanitarian and religious standpoint when conducting medical experiments within your own country. However, what if it's being done outside your country? What if the nature of warfare causes the conquered people to be regarded as inferior? The history of pharmacology clearly proves that, and the greatest breakthroughs in medical science came during the Age of Exploration, or the Age of Conquest.
つまり我々の国はその外資系企業、いや外国によって人体実験の場にされていたということなんですか？
In other words, our own country was engaging with a foreign company. No, it was involved with human experiments happening in foreign countries?
平たく言えばそういうことだ。
To put it plainly, yes.
冗談じゃない。
You can't be serious.
そんなことあって許されるものではありません。
That's completely unacceptable.
そうだ、冗談ではない話だ。
Yes, this is completely serious.
国益を守るためにも、そんなことは絶対に阻止しなくてはならん。
And in order to protect national interests, we need to put a stop to such a thing.
そう思って、我々公安は捜査に当たっていた。
That's why we at Public Security were investigating it. Yamuki lit another cigarette as he said that. That was his way of trying to calm himself down. Tomoe realized that from the look on his face.
ローエル社は 取り締まりの対象となった薬物に限らず、他にも危険な未認可製剤の試験を日本で行い、そのデータを本社へと持ち出していた。
Lowell Inc. wasn't just doing this for regulated drugs, but also other dangerous drugs that weren't approved for testing in Japan, taking that data to the head office.
そして仲介の連中に賄賂をばらまき、斡旋を頼んでいた。
And they bribed an intermediary to get it overlooked.
明らかに外為法、そして薬事法違反だ。
Even though it was an obvious violation of foreign trade control laws and pharmaceutical affairs laws.
そしてその仲介を行っていたのがとある清少だった。
And the intermediary they used was a businessman with political influence.
その黒幕がやったという有力な証拠は残念ながら未だにつかめていない。
Unfortunately, we still haven't obtained strong evidence indicating the mastermind behind this.
そして今もなお、そういった未認可製剤が国内に流通している疑いがある。
And there's reason to suspect that such unlicensed drugs are being distributed within Japan even now.
現金問屋を通じてな。
Through cash and carry wholesalers.
現金問屋を
Cash and carry? A cash and carry wholesaler is a small to medium-sized wholesale store that sells goods at lower than market prices, and you can purchase medication there regardless if it's legal or not. Their sources are quite diverse. Police and pharmaceutical companies can swipe samples and stock items then exchange them for pocket money, or the vendors can even buy overstocked items from other wholesalers. In the worst case, the hospitals themselves can be involved in the scheme. A manager or other person in charge secretly sells any excess stock of medication the facility has on hand and lines their pockets with the proceeds. And some of the drugs being traded there include unlicensed medication that can't be legitimately sold.
だったらどうしてそれを取り締まらないのですか
Then why hasn't it been shut down?
警察にはその権限がない。
The police don't have the authority to do so.
無論公安にもな。
And of course, same goes for public security.
薬事に関しては厚生省、そして政財界の汚職は検察庁の特捜部と明確に区分けがされている。
The Ministry of Health and Welfare manages pharmaceutical affairs. The public prosecutor's office is responsible for corruption in the political and business world.
そしてそれらが好意的かつ積極的に協力して行動を起こしたことはほとんどいやゼロに等しいだろう。
And the odds of them being cordial enough to cooperate are approximately no, pretty much zero.
しかしユウスケ、君の父は何かを掴んだのだと私は考えている。
But I think that Yusuke, your father, managed to grab onto something.
そうでなければあんなあからさまな口封じをされるはずがないからな。
But because otherwise, they wouldn't have so overtly silenced him.
私をこの書き打ちに呼んでくださったのはそれも関係しているのですか
Does that have anything to do with why you brought me to Kakuichi? For the longest time, anytime she asked that question, he'd dodge it. For a high-ranking member of public security like Yamauchi, accepting a chief position at a local precinct was like taking an early retirement. And despite being under completely different jurisdiction, Tomoe was somewhat forcibly dispatched from her position at main office to the Kakuichi location. She thought it could have been just a whim based on their prior connections, but the timing was far too perfect. And so, she wanted to know. She wanted to hear the real motivation, straight from Yamauchi's mouth. Yamauchi took 2 or 3 more smokes, remaining quiet the whole time. Normally, the conversation would end right there. However,
そうだ。
it does. For the very first time, Yamauchi said it, as he turned to Tomoe and nodded. As soon as she heard that, she lost the ability to stand. Her whole body stiffened as all the strength drained from her. In the end, she was right. Her speculation turned out to be completely true.
ユウスケが接触していたという情報提供者がこの近辺にいるという噂を聞きつけてな。
I heard rumors that Yosuke made previous contact with an informant in this area.
詳しい情報をつかむためにもちょうど空席となっていたこの下級地署の署長職を利用させてもらった。
Since the chief position here at Kakuichi Station was vacant, I made use of it in order to gather more detailed information.
そして入念な捜査の結果、ほぼ確実と見込んで君を呼び寄せた。
And, as a result of that careful investigation, and being almost certain of a discovery, I called you here.
せめて最後は君に手錠をかけさせてやりたいと思ったのだ。
Because in the very end, I wanted you to be the one to handcuff the perp.
山沖さん。
Yamaoki-san.
だが、残念ながらその人物は君がここに赴任する直前に行方がわからなくなった。
Unfortunately, that man disappeared just before you began your post here.
消されたか、それとも危険を察して身を隠したか、それも不明だ。
Whether the informant was eliminated or intentionally went into hiding to avoid the danger, still not certain.
そして捜査は再び振り出しに戻ったというわけだ。
And so, the investigation fell right back to where it started.
その人物は一体何者だったんですか？
Just who on earth was this person?
柿内空港の国際線移設を反対していた空港近隣の住民だ。
A resident who lived near Kakuichi Airport was opposed to the rerouting of international flights through Kakuichi.
市民運動の関係上、とある政治団体にもつながっていたそうだが、公安の見立てでは関与は素人のことだった。
Seems you had connections to a certain political group thanks to the Citizens Group campaign. Public Security came to the conclusion it was connected with CIRO.
結局、その男にどうしてユウスケが接触をかけたのか、今となっては何もわからん。
In the end, I still don't know why Yusuke was in contact with this man.
私が知るのはそれが全てだ。
And that's all I know.
ローウェル事件。それを調べて父は柿内にやってきた。
The Lowell incident. That's what my father came to Kakuichi to investigate. Though all her doubts about why she was assigned a position in such an unfamiliar location had been eliminated, Tomoe was now worried about a new question that arose from that information. The Lowell incident, the problem of dangerous drugs coming from foreign pharmaceutical companies, was mainly involving the Ministry of Health and Welfare and relevant medical personnel, and their focus was primarily based in Tokyo. However, the fact that Tomoe's father visited here meant there must have been something about this transaction and information leakage that pertained to Kakuichi. But if that's the case, then what was it? And just who was involved? The mystery had only deepened, and she was no closer to getting to the bottom of it. Tomoe let out a sigh, then pulled out her notebook and spread it out to look at the calendar. 1 month left. After that, Tomoe would be called back to the National Police Agency's Public Relations Office to start on another task. Her reckless project would probably end in failure. She assumed she'd be forced to bear responsibility for the failure, demoted to a meaningless post. Nevertheless, they might acknowledge her success on other cases and put her back on the promotion track.
何なんだろう。
I wonder why. She couldn't be satisfied with that. There was no sense of accomplishment, as if she'd been involved in a major scam. She wanted to catch the true culprit behind Kohei and Nagisa's murders and the death of Hiranuma. Though she knew it was reckless and unreasonable, that was her reason for coming back to Kakuichi. And after gaining allies and support completely incomparable to what she had last year, she seriously believed she'd be able to arrive at the truth. But the more grateful she was for the support and expectations of her colleagues, the more frustrated she got when she found herself getting stuck like this. If she wanted to keep pursuing her personal justice, she had to keep moving forward in accordance with her beliefs. Accepting the collateral and retribution alone, making sure nobody else got hurt and dragged down. But when that justice resides in someone else, you have to think about them. Is it right to brush that off and stick to your beliefs? Or are you just doing it out of self-complacency?
とりあえずいい結果が出るといいですね。
Anyway, hope things turn out well.
え？
Huh?
薬ですよ。
About the medicine.
せっかく君吉夏美からサンプルを提供してもらったんだから、Minaiさんの推理通りの効能があれば、今後の捜査にも進展がありそうですから。
We received a sample from Natsumi Kimiyoshi, so if the analysis goes as predicted, we should be able to make progress on the investigation soon.
そうね。
Right. Matsuoka from the forensics team at Gifu Prefectural Station was an old acquaintance of Tomoe's from college. He was highly skilled, and she could rely on him to keep things confidential. Above all, he was one of the best people across all of Japan for accurately analyzing the composition of a drug in a short time
も
frame.
し精神に異常をきたすような何らかの効能があったとすれば状況は大きく動く
If the medication had any kind of effect on her mind, then the investigation will move forward significantly.
ゴグラの大学病院にも強制捜査を差し向けることが可能だろう
It might even give us grounds to conduct an investigation of the university hospital in Gogura.
でも
But somehow she couldn't wipe away her listless thoughts. It was enough to raise her spirits. Plus, there was a possibility upper management didn't even want the results, so when she thought about that, she was at a loss for whether or not to go any deeper. Huh? As she sighed and turned toward the window, she suddenly caught a glimpse of a sign that read Kakuji's service area 1 kilometer ahead. It quickly flew backwards beyond her field of view, but she was feeling somewhat thirsty and stuffy, so Tomoe thought about it for a moment and then turned to Hanada as he continued driving.
花田くんちょっとサービスエリアに寄ってくれる
Hanada-kun, would you mind stopping at the service area for a little while? Huh?
ああ、別に構いませんけど、トイレですか？
Sure, I don't really mind. You need to use the toilet?
違うわよ喉が渇いたの
That's not it. I was feeling thirsty. Jeez, is that the first thing you ask a lady? She glared at Hanada for his lack of delicacy. Most men in the police would have that sort of indifference, but somehow it was irritating this time.
ああ、すみません。ひょっとして酔っちゃいましたか？
Oh, sorry. Could it be that you're feeling carsick?
安全運転のつもりだったんですけど、俺ってあんまり運転がお上品じゃないもんで。
I was trying to drive carefully, but my driving style's not exactly elegant.
そんなことないって
No, it's not so.
別に普通よ普通
Your driving is perfectly normal. Although, even though she had responded in a flattering manner, she was actually feeling a little discomfort from the timing of the steering and braking. In fact, Hanada was a car enthusiast who liked to tune up his ride. He had a license to compete and was qualified as a mechanic. He even participated in circuit races in the past. Though that made him a skilled driver, driving with him was a bit uncomfortable because he had a tendency to speed. If she were traveling with Fujita, she wouldn't be feeling any second thoughts like this. A cynical sense of guilt rose up inside her chest. She wanted to ask Matsuoka to perform the forensic analysis on Natsumi's medication. Fujita was away from his desk at the time, so she asked Hanada to help. At least, that was her excuse. But the real reason was that she felt a little reluctant to see Fujita face to face.
藤田くんも花田くんも私の部下じゃないんだから
Fujita-kun and Hanada-kun are not my subordinates at the moment.
私に内緒で動いたって止める権利はないんだけど
If they're keeping things from me, I have no right to stop them. Plus, Fujita had consulted with Yamaoki because he was worried about her. She knew that, but she just couldn't help holding ill feelings.
とりあえずこの先は都市部で渋滞気味みたいだしちょっと一息ついておこうと思ってね
Anyway, looks like there's a lot of traffic in the city area up ahead, so maybe a short break would be for the best.
いい
What do you say?
わかりました。
Understood. Before long, the road forked off toward the service area and Hanada gently turned to the left, and then the car slowly maneuvered into an available parking space.
じゃあちょっと待ってて
Alright, it'll only be a moment.
すぐ戻るから
I'll be right back.
ああ、だったら俺、ついでに給油してきますよ。
Oh, in that case, I'll fill up the tank.
10分ほどであの手洗い場の付近に車を止めますから、そっちに来てください。
I'll park near the bathroom, so meet me over there in about 10 minutes.
だからトイレじゃないって言ったでしょ
I told you, I'm not here for the bathroom.
ぶっ飛ばすわよ
I'm gonna clobber you. It was Sunday today, so the area in front of the shop was crowded with families and couples. To escape the crowds, Tomoe headed to a vending machine off in a shady corner. She inserted a 100 yen coin and then pressed the button for a can of coffee. As soon as she picked it up, she was surprised by how unexpectedly hot it was, and accidentally dropped it.
あっちってホット
Ouch! Is this served hot? Tomoe cursed at the vending machine while gently picking it up with her fingers. Well, it was her mistake for pressing the button without checking first, but who sells hot drinks in the summer?
空気読めよこんちきしょう
Try reading the air, damn it. It'd be a waste to buy another, so she rolled it back and forth in the palm of her hand to cool it off. Tomoe let out a sigh, wondering if she should have just gotten some free cold water from the shop.
あれ
Huh? She suddenly turned toward the parking lot, feeling a strange sense that something was out of place. No, it was more like deja vu, so she quickly sharpened her vision. She had visited the Kakuji service area many times in the past, but there was something different about the scene stretched out in front of her. Sometime in the past, after finishing up an errand, she came here. That's right. She was sure of it. Hinata had driven here before. Her here before. And that moment, Tomoe felt like she had been stabbed with a sharp instrument and gasped for breath while holding her side. But there was nothing there. She wasn't wounded at all, and she couldn't see any trace of anything. Even when she examined her surroundings, all she could see were chatting customers.
気のせいよ
Must be my imagination. Tomoe shook her head to stave off the wretched hallucination. Then she pulled the tab on her can, which was finally starting to feel a little cold, and drank the coffee all at once. The sweet sugar and milk clung to her throat. She felt an unpleasant odor in her mouth. Was it because of the warm texture, or...
あれ
Huh? Just then, she casually glanced at the bus stop waiting area as she approached the trash can, but she suddenly came to a stop and focused her eyes. There were about 3 people under the awning, waiting for the bus to arrive, and one among them was a familiar-looking girl. Oh!
まさか
It can't be! The side of her face was obscured by a beret-like hat and her shoulder-length hair. That was the girl she met in Hinamazawa half a year ago, Rena Ryuugu.
こんなところへなんで
Why is she in a place like this? Tomoe quickly hid herself in the shade and then assessed the situation. Today was Sunday. Students are off today, so it's not that unusual for them to go somewhere. But Rena appeared to be alone. It was suspicious that she didn't have any travel companions. For a girl her age, it would be strange to be traveling to a completely different prefecture without her parents, or at least some friends. That moment, she could see a highway bus pulling into the bus stop. Upon seeing that, all the people in the waiting area rose to their feet, and Rena followed suit, lining up behind them.
どうする
What should I do?
このまま一緒にバスに乗って尾行するか
Should I get on the bus and follow her? Thinking that, Tomoe turned toward the parking lot by the bathroom, but unfortunately a long-haul truck was parked there, so she couldn't see anything beyond its huge frame. It would be convenient if Hinata was parked over there, but if he was still refueling at the gas station, it would be a huge time sink to go let him know. Alternatively, she could get in Hinata's car and follow the bus from behind, but considering the road conditions, there was far too great a risk of losing sight of them when other cars merged in between. The bus would stop for a minute at most. She had no time to second-guess herself.
そうだ
Right. Tomoe suddenly came up with an idea, then rushed to a nearby public phone and dialed the number for the Kakuji Station Information Center.
はいこちら柿内署
Hello, you've reached Kakuji Station.
警部の見ないです
This is Chief Inspector Minai.
走行中の19号車の無線に連絡を
Contact car number 19 by radio.
見ないは売店で参考人らしき人物を発見それを追跡して高速バスに乗車
Tell him that Minai spotted a key witness at a shop and is currently pursuing them via highway bus.
追って連絡すると
And then I'll be in touch.
了解しました
Roger that.
よろしくそれじゃ
Thanks. Over and out. Tomoe quickly said that, then hung up the receiver without waiting for a response. The information center should be able to contact Hinata over the radio in his car, and she should probably apologize to him after she gets back to Kakuji Station. When she turned back toward the bus stop, the bus had just come to a halt, and the automatic doors swung open, welcoming the passengers inside. Seeing that, Tomoe carefully approached the back of the line, making sure Rena wouldn't notice, and stepped up the ramp and boarded at the last moment.
どうしたのかなミナイさん
I wonder what's going on with Minai-san.
19号車ならミナイさんと誰が乗ってるんだっけ
She's in car number 19 with, who was it again? The operator took a look at the dispatch table and then dubiously tilted her head. The name Minai was listed there, but the investigator supposedly accompanying her wasn't written there.
こういうところすごくきっちりしている人なのにね
Even though she's supposed to be such a thorough person.
これ書いたのミナイさん
Did Minai-san actually write this?
いえ違いますよ
No, that's not right.
確か男の人で、誰だっけ
I'm sure it was a man, but who?
とりあえず無線つなげばわかるかな
Anyway, I guess we should try making contact over the wireless.
こちら柿内署 車情報センター
This is the Kakuichi Station Information Center.
19号車応答せよ
Car number 19, please come in. Whoa! Damn. The highway bus had departed the Kakuichi service area and was proceeding toward the city at a gradual pace. After exiting the highway and proceeding through a few town areas, they arrived at a bus terminal and then transferred to a downtown bus. However, Tomoe was in a hurry, so she neglected to confirm where the final stop was. Tomoe sat down in the far back seat and hid herself while listening in the direction of the front seats. Rena was sitting close to the middle of the bus with her back turned this way. It was hard to tell since her head was hanging low, but she probably wasn't aware that she was being followed. However,
どこへ行く気なんだろう
just where is she going? After all, this was a long way to travel for a shopping trip, and when Tomoe first spotted her, she wasn't carrying any bags other than a small purse. Of course, Rena had her own unique hobbies like hunting for treasures at the mound of garbage, so maybe it was normal for her to be doing things alone. But according to Tomoe's early investigation, and based on what she had heard from Oishi, she should be strongly opposed to leaving Yamazawa. Given that, there must be a compelling reason for her to voluntarily travel outside the village.
そういえば
Come to think of it, Tomoe suddenly remembered the assault Rena Ryuugu committed back in Ibaraki, and gasped. She was a well-behaved girl with good relations with her friends, but underwent a sudden change and attacked them all ramping through the school. Isn't that assault case just like what happened with Natsumi the other day?
この薬を飲みすぎてからなんだか自分じゃない自分が私に話しかけてくるようになって
When I took too much of the medication, somehow I found another version of myself talking to me.
私ほんのさっきまでその子に体を乗っ取られていたんです
That girl had taken over my body.
その子私の本当の心を暴き出してくるんです
That girl was my true heart revealing itself,
みんな壊したい
wanting to destroy everyone,
みんななかったことにしたい
wanting everyone to be gone,
気に入らないこと全部消して邪魔するやつはみんな殺して
erasing everything I don't like, killing everyone that gets in my way, and Natsumi didn't seem like the sort of child to lie to evade blame. Even if it's only halfway true, there's no doubt that drug had an impact on her mental state. And just like Natsumi, Rena was from Hinamazawa, so it wouldn't be strange if she'd undergone medical exams at the Gogoro University Hospital too. In which case, was there a chance she was prescribed the same medication as Natsumi? Then, what if Natsumi and Rena's anomalous behavior had the same root cause?
証拠はない
There's no proof of that,
でも確かめる価値はある
but it's still worth investigating. Eventually, bus exited the highway and pulled onto the major city road as it entered Kakuichi City. Then, an automated voice announced the next stop where the bus was heading. In that moment... Huh? Tomoe's eyes opened wide in shock, and she barely managed to suppress her voice, because the location of the terminal was...
ここって
Here? Tomoe was the last one to get off the bus, and she felt pain as she looked around the terminal in shock. The Omaki district of Kakuichi City. She could never forget. This was the town where Nagisa lived. She paid a visit to her bereaved family after her death, but she couldn't even speak properly at the time. She could only clap her hands together praying for the soul of the departed. And she tried visiting again a while later, but they'd already moved. She was easily able to find out where they moved to, but felt like the bereaved family had given their reply to Tomoe and her cohorts, so she couldn't say anything more. Though this was a bus terminal, there was no major shopping center nearby. At best, there was a park surrounding a castle, but she likely didn't come here to see that. In which case, there was only one thing she could think of.
なんで今さら
But why now? Rena should already know that Nagisa has passed away. Then, did she come here to pray for her at her grave? But that conflicted with the story she heard earlier. Hinata definitely met with Rena before, and he said,
特になしです
not very strongly.
無関係を装うというよりも無関心って感じでしたよ
It's more like she was genuinely apathetic to the news rather than just pretending it had nothing to do with her.
無関心
Apathetic?
せめてたたりにあって殺されたんでしょとかいい君だってな感じに反応してくれたらこっちとしても名目が立ったんですかね。
At the very least, she could have responded with they were cursed or serves them right to put on some pretense.
そうなんですかだけだったら返す言葉なしです。
But all she had to say was, is that so?
今時の子供ってのは転校したら前の友人のことなんて忘れちまうものなのかって正直呆れちゃいましたよ。
To be honest, I was shocked that children today could be so quick to forget their old friends after moving to a new school. If that was how she acted when first informed of her friend's death, what made her change her mind now? Was there something big that drove Rena Ryuugu to this decision? Or maybe... Is this it? I found the address plate posted on the corner and made sure the letters matched up exactly as I heard them, then let out a sigh. This area is full of expensive homes that would be completely unimaginable in Hinamizawa. Even back when I was in Ibaraki, I hadn't seen many houses like these. The asphalt looked recently paved and had a nice smooth surface, and the neighborhood association must be doing a good job cleaning up because there was no trash to be found anywhere. It was like a scene cut right out of television, like a completely different world. There was no scent of grass in the air, and the cry of the cicadas has a strange sound to it. No, I don't think this weirdness is the town's fault. It's just my heart making it feel that way. I carefully checked the address numbers one by one, and finally located the house. It was a beautiful 2-story house. It felt so excessive that it put extra weight and strain on my whole body. I couldn't find the nameplate. Still, the address written on the gate definitely matched what I had written on my notepad. I'm finally here. Looking the place over once more, a shiver ran from my head to my toes. My knees had no strength left in them, and my legs felt like they were being crushed. A bloody odor erupted from the back of my throat. Tears were about to come spilling out if I relaxed even a little, so I blinked my eyes over and over while gritting my teeth. This is the house where Nagisa Ozaki-chan lives. I felt like turning back so many times before I got here. I'd be bothering them if I showed up without letting them know ahead of time. Just how many times did I start to make that excuse for swallowing it down? However, this is something I have to do for myself to set things right. I pressed the doorbell. They might not be home, or maybe the bell is broken. Such a dishonorable means of escape came to mind, but before it could fully take shape, the front door swung open, and the person standing there was... Huh? It was a middle-aged woman I didn't recognize at all, and she must have felt the same way because she was suspiciously looking back at me.
ここって尾崎さんの家ですか？
Is this the home of Ozaki-san?
いいえ、うちは畠山なんですけど。
No, this is the Hatakeyama residence.
すみません。
I'm sorry. Though I felt embarrassed, at the same time I also felt relieved. Come to think of it, there was plenty of times I ran into the same problem with houses in the city.
じゃあお隣は尾崎さんですか？
Then does Ozaki-san live next door?
え？
Huh?
ええ、以前はそうだったわね。
Yes, at least that used to be the case.
だった？
Used to.
引っ越しちゃったのよ。
They moved away.
もう半年になるかしら。今は誰も住んでいないわよ。
It's been about half a year since then, and there's nobody living there now. As soon as I heard that, I gasped and froze. They moved, and it happened half a year ago? Half a year ago, that was when we spoke over the phone. Then Nagisa-chan isn't here anymore?
渚ちゃん、尾崎さんはどちらに引っ越されましたか？
Do you know where Nagisa-chan, Ozaki-san moved to?
さあ、ごめんなさい。
Oh, I'm sorry.
急に出て行かれたから聞いていないの。
It happened so suddenly I never heard.
そんな。
It can't be. I was stunned and it felt like all the tension had finally snapped, so I collapsed to the ground with no strength left in me. Nagisa-chan had moved away. And could it be that Nagisa-chan moved away from here because she didn't want to see me? Then why? Why? Which way did I go, and how far did I walk from there? I couldn't remember. Before I realized that I found myself sitting on a bench in a park. It was just sad. The streetlights faintly illuminated the ground, and I could see a cluster of beetles around it. I couldn't hear any human voices or any other signs of people. All I could hear was the rustling of the leaves in the wind. Maybe because it was nice and sunny in the daytime, the air right now felt sickeningly warm.
Nagisa-chan.
Nagisa-chan. I spoke just that name, while spreading out the crumpled paper I'd been holding in my hand this whole time. I called all the middle school teachers and classmates I could think of, desperately pleading with them, and finally managed to get Nagisa-chan's phone number. My fingers were shaking, and I wasn't sure if I'd even be able to dial the number, but Nagisa-chan answered the phone, then immediately fell silent when she realized the person on the other end was me. I was so happy.
Rena?
Rena?
Rena なんでしょ?
Rena, is that you?
うん。
Yeah.
本当?
Really?
本当にレイナなのね?
It's really you, Rena?
うん。私、レイナ。
Yeah, it's me. Rena.
レイナだよ、Nagisa-chan.
It's Rena, Nagisa-chan. It had been so long since I'd heard my old name. I didn't want to be called that anymore, so I became Rena Ryuugu. The I in the name reminded me of icky, ugly old scars. But it had a nostalgic tone to it, hearing it from a voice I could never forget. So the depths of my chest started to heat up and my eyes were getting moist. It felt like I was about to start sobbing. I could hear it. The sound of Nagisa-chan's heavy, painful breaths came in through the phone, shaking my eardrum. Until just a little while ago, she was a friend I could talk to about almost anything. We'd go on about all sorts of topics for hours and hours on end. Our parents got upset with us for talking so long on more than one occasion. And yet, right now, no words came to mind. I couldn't move my lips. Nagisa-chan kept quiet, waiting for me to say something. Even though she could easily hang up the phone, she was still listening, waiting for me to speak up. But what should I do? Is there anything I can say? Long time no see? I'm sorry? Or I was beginning to regret my hesitation and impatience, and while thinking I shouldn't have done this to begin with, tears felt as though they'd begin spilling out. But just then... Rena? It was so calm. It was the meek, gentle voice of Nagisa-chan that I always loved, and it softly resonated, filling my heart. Then... I'd like to meet you. Would you like to meet up somewhere? Huh? Sorry. There are a lot of things. So many things to talk about, and I can't speak well over the phone. Rena, I want to meet you and talk with you. I want to see your face and talk with you again. Nagisa-chan? Rena, you're living in Hinamizawa now, right? I live in Omaki. Have you heard of it? There's a bus I can take to get from here to there. Yeah. How did she know where I lived? That's a ridiculous question. I'm sure Nagisa-chan asked people about it and found out, just like I did. The tears I'd been holding back finally came spilling out. Nagisa-chan had felt the same way I did. Even though I did such terrible things and hurt her, she was betrayed by her best friend, but she didn't forget me. She may be angry, she may hate me, she might be resentful, but that was fine. I was happy with that. I tore myself apart and trampled on myself. The original Rena Ryuugu that I cast aside and threw away was the one Nagisa-chan always remembered. Hey, Rena, would that be no good? Do you think we shouldn't meet up? No! Not at all! In fact, the opposite. Was she really sure she wanted to meet me again? I was confused with a mix of happiness and fear, so my mouth froze and I couldn't put my thoughts into words. I felt thankful, I felt frustrated, and hesitant and restless and bewildered, preventing me from putting it into words. It was disappointing, sad, and shameful. However... Thank you, Rena. Though I was being cowardly, Nagisa-chan spoke up first and conveyed her kind-hearted feelings mixed with tears. And yet I don't even deserve to receive her thanks. Even if she held a grudge and blamed me as much as possible, she'd be in the right, and I'd be guilty enough to deserve it. And yet, Nagisa-chan, for my sake, all for someone like me. The tears wouldn't stop. Why had I tried to forget my kind-hearted friend? Why couldn't I be more trusting? Why couldn't I open my heart and speak up? I was afraid of being hated. So whenever I thought I was being hated, I refused to accept that fact and ran away. But Nagisa-chan waited for me. For a vile coward like me, she defended my original place and even cherished it. Then I'll head up your way next Sunday. Can you tell me some place we should meet? No way. I should be the one coming to you. Nagisa-chan, I can't make you go to the trouble coming all the way here. It's fine. It's for your sake too, Rena. I'm sure you'd be more comfortable meeting and talking at a place you know, right? So, please. Let me do this. Nagisa-chan. Maybe Nagisa-chan had heard about her family situation and my illness, from someone, and that's why she was being so insistent. Just as she said that, I really was afraid to defy Oishiro-sama by leaving Hinamizawa. Even though the curse had passed, there was always a chance it could come back again. What's more, with Nagisa-chan pressing the attack that directly, there was no way to refuse. Thinking that, I suppressed the guilt tormenting me and replied, yeah. Alright, see you then. I have a lot to talk about, but we'll do it when we meet again, okay? Yeah. Cute. Then the two of us exchanged addresses just in case, and then ended the call. Even after the call was over, I held the phone to my chest and kept crying for a while longer. However, when the scheduled day arrived, Nagisa-chan didn't come. And after that, no matter how many times I called, nobody answered. I suddenly raised my head and took a look around. There were people around here and there just a little while ago, but I could no longer hear anyone. Nobody was there, or here. The hands on my glow-in-the-dark watch told me the time. It was already late enough I'd normally be in bed. I wonder if there's a train nearby. The highway bus leading to Hinamizawa was no longer in service at this hour. Might even be last call for the train, too. A taxi might be the only remaining option, but if I were to call one this late at night, rather than giving me a ride, they'd probably report me to the police. Just then... Oh, good evening. A voice called out from behind the trees, and I turned back. I saw a woman in a red suit walking toward me. I carefully peered at her, feeling suspicious, but since she was a woman, I didn't feel particularly scared. Still, it was natural to be cautious around strangers calling out to you in this time of day. Long time no see? It's been about half a year? Sorry? Who are you?
Minai Tomoe desu.
Tomoe Minai.
覚えてない?
You don't remember me?
すみません。
Oh, sorry. The woman's eyes were open wide, and she looked a bit surprised. Based on that reaction, could I have just forgotten her?
ごめんなさい。
I'm sorry.
どこで会ったか教えてくれませんか?
Could you tell me where we met?
ひなみざわよ。
In Hinamizawa?
それからこの柿内でもね。
And also in Kakuichi?
レナ、 この町に来たの今日が初めてなんですけど。
But this is the first time Rena ever came to this town. Her words were making me feel more and more suspicious. Even if she was just pretending to be an acquaintance, it's weird that she knows I'm from Hinamizawa. No way. Could she be?
警察庁広報室の警察官。
I'm an officer from the Public Relations Office of the National Police Agency. Huh?
いえ、こう言った方がよくわかるかもね。
No. Maybe you'll understand it better if I put it another way.
元茨城県警の刑事です。
I was originally a detective from the Ibaraki Prefectural Police Department. Suddenly, a skin-crawling chill ran down the nape of my neck. Before I realized it, my feet were trembling and a cold sweat was running down my forehead and along my cheeks. A detective? Why? What does she want from me? Cool, they're meeting up again. Let's go. All right, it's still early. We can still read more. But I'm gonna go ahead and throw up a BRB. I'll be back shortly. Give me just a handful of minutes. I'm gonna get some more water, do all that, and then we'll read some more. I am back. Alright. So Rena, and Tomoe meeting up late at night. What is the discussion going to be? In this dark corner of the park, draped in only... Excuse me, I'm coughing. Jesus. In this dark corner of the park, draped in only the curtain of light coming from the streetlights, Tomoe suddenly adjusted her posture to look face to face with Rena Ryuugu. The girl stood up from the bench, with an expression so distraught it was plain to see even in the dark, and looked at Tomoe with her jaw clenched tight. A detective? From Ibaraki Prefecture? Yes, that's right. Maybe I forgot to mention that when we met on the phone booth. What are you talking about? Rena has never met you before. Oh, really now? Looking at Rena's face, Tomoe snorted and shrugged her shoulders. To hear her so completely deny it after leaving such a strong impression wasn't just brazen, it was aggravating. What's more, the fact that she could remain so calm while lying was far beyond her years, and not like an innocent child at all. Is she pretending it never happened? Fine. Even if that's the case, I'll peel back her layers. Tomoe set aside the discomfort in her heart and carefully focused on Reina's mannerisms as she stood there quietly. She was too slow to react last year, but now that she knew her opponent was capable of behaving aggressively, she had no intention of repeating the same mistake. For that reason, she was willing to set aside her dignity as a police officer and pin her down if things got a little rough. Well, let's just put that aside. That said, I'm not a total stranger. The juvenile division officer who interrogated you is actually a friend of mine, and I've heard a lot of stories. Rena grabbed the ribbon on her chest and squeezed it hard enough to let out an audible squeak, while cautiously gazing at Tomoe. Seeing that, Tomoe casually relaxed the left side of her jacket, ready to immediately pull the extendable baton from her inner pocket, depending on Reina's reaction. You won't take me by surprise this time. Plus, even if she tried to flee, Tomoe could apprehend her on the grounds of trying to guide a girl loitering around outside in the middle of the night, justify her actions that way. Tomoe remained on full alert and wouldn't let her advantageous position go to waste. Do you want something? Let me turn it around and ask you the same thing. You live all the way in Hinamizawa, so what business do you have here in Kakuichi? Rena turned back with a sharp glare while suddenly catching her breath and solidifying herself. That stern reaction was far different from how school children are raised to react. It was far more intimidating than words, enough to make you forget we're dealing with another girl. You were dealing with another girl. Is something wrong? How about this? If I answer your question first, will you answer mine? Rena just came here to see a friend. And stopped at this park on the way back. I see. A friend from your days in Ibaraki. Wonder if you're referring to Nagisa Ozaki. Now completely understanding everything, huge globs of sweat began pouring out of Reina's entire body all at once. This detective named Minai wasn't simply asking questions, she was verifying the information she already knew.
尾行されていた。
Was she following me?
どこから？
For how long? She went from Hinamazawa to Okinomiya, then took a bus to Kakuichi. She was thinking about Nagisa the whole time, so she never noticed she was being followed. What's more, based on her responses, it was clear she'd been following her well before she came to the park. But why on earth would someone follow her? Even though she only left Hinamazawa to meet up with Nagisa, why would someone be keeping watch of her like this? Against that completely illogical absurdity, confusion and hesitation ran rampant, and from that thought, animosity and distrust toward this detective rose up in Reina's chest. Just what on earth was this detective questioning her about?
尾崎さんに何の用だったの？
Do you have business with Ozaki-san?
別にそんなの刑事さんに関係ないじゃないですか。
Not really. Nothing that would concern a detective.
もう夜も遅いので帰ってもいいですか？
It's getting really late, so can I go home now? Or,
待ちなさい。
wait, it says can I go home how? I think that's a typo. It should be now, but the N and an H. Alright, please wait. Oh. After trying to leave, Tomoe quickly grabbed Rena by the arm to stop her. Rena instinctively tried to shake it off, but moaned while turning to her with a look of agony on her face. Oh boy. Her wrist joint was slightly bent inwards. If she showed any signs of resistance, she could be easily suppressed in a single blow.
この人本気だ。
This lady, serious. A horrifying fright rose up inside of her, but Rena suppressed the trembling in her voice and finally said, "Please let go." However, Tomoe maintained her stern expression and continued speaking.
未成年の深夜徘徊に対しては警察官の任意判断で補導を執行する権利が認められている。
When minors are loitering in the middle of the night, police officers have the right to take them into protective custody at their discretion.
今の時間、そしてこの町の慣習から考慮しても余裕でアウトね。
Considering the time and the circumstance of this town, wouldn't be unreasonable. Huh?
それと一応言っておくけど、ここで逆らえば公務執行妨害もプラスされる。
And let me just tell you, if you try to fight back here, you could be adding obstruction of government duties to the mix.
おとなしく言う通りにした方があなたのためよ。
For your sake, I suggest you quietly comply. Damn, she is not fucking around here. Tomoe's like, I'm getting it, we're doing the thing. The light in Reina's eyes was shaking violently in fear. When Tomoe was able to see that in the dim light, she suddenly frowned in discomfort. When she made that sort of proclamation with young people in the past, there were two main types of reactions. The first is to become hostile, to show intense emotions like a beast bearing its fangs. This is the general attitude one shows when they realize they're in an inferior position, and the fear and anxiety visible in the back of their eyes is clear proof of that. And the second is to become entirely expressionless, as if completely frozen, but also completely observant of the movements around you, waiting for a chance to act without hesitation. The latter of which is far more cunning and harder to deal with. They lose perception of evil in their own situation, and they even abandon any feelings of guilt, so they're at an elevated risk of violently running wild. Even now, Tomoe still suspected that Rena Ryuugu had some involvement in Nagisa Osaki and Kohei Sawamura's incidents. Of course, she didn't think Rena was a culprit, but she felt that there was somebody working behind her, whether it was the Sonozaki family like Oishi says, or some sort of medical personnel, or something else. It's possible that those people were acting behind the scenes, and when Rena entered this park, they were planning to make contact with her. She couldn't help but speculate. Thus, in her point of view, Rena Ryuugu should have something to show in this provocation, and once Tomoe saw the signs, she intended to take her into custody, no questions asked. But even in this darkness, the dim lights from the streetlights revealed fear and anxiety on Reina's face. Moreover, she couldn't detect any of the violent murderous intent she witnessed before, which left Tomoe baffled.
この子、本当にあの竜宮レイナなの？
Is this girl really that Rena Ryuugu? Tomoe squinted her eyes while dubiously looking at Rena. She expected total resistance, but this was completely different from the image of her from Tomoe's memories. She gently stroked her neck with her still bandaged hand. Tomoe definitely was assaulted by her and strangled at the phone booth in Hinamazawa half a year ago. Huh?
死ねえ、おバカさん。
Die, you idiot! It's so good. Don't kill me. Don't kill me, Rena. In a phone booth. And call me an idiot. Though she was surprised, at the time she was truly prepared for death. And in her rapidly fading consciousness, the girl's visage was so frightening and cruel, she looked like a man-eating monster with the blood of demons flowing through her, just as Oishi said. And after that, on the night when she went out to eat with her little sister Madoka, she saw Rena at the scene when their car exploded. Tomoe still had some lingering doubts about how she'd be able to cause a car to explode, but since she was there, it was hard to say she was irrelevant. And yet, the Rena Ryuugu standing right in front of her was a completely ordinary girl.
一体どっちが本当のリュウグウレイナなんだろうか。
Which of them is the real Rena Ryuugu? Tomoe remained alert to her surroundings while keeping her eyes fixed on Rena. She couldn't see any other people nearby or sense any signs of anyone else approaching. In the worst case scenario, she was prepared to be attacked by the girl's contact when she first called out to her, but now she was starting to feel a bit let down.
とにかく一度署に来てもらえるかしら。
Anyway, would you mind coming down to the station?
あなたの親御さんにも連絡しないとね。
I'll need to contact your parents too.
どうしてですか？
But why?
レナ何も悪いことなんてしていません。
Rena hasn't done anything wrong.
親にもちゃんと言ってきたし、もう家に帰るつもりでした。
I already spoke to my dad about it and was planning to head straight home.
不良みたいに決めつけないでください。
You can't just arbitrarily decide I'm up to no good.
決めつけ。
Arbitrarily decide?
でもあなたにその心当たりがないとは言わせない。
But you can't say there's no basis for that.
前科ありってのはね、子供大人に関係なくそういうものなのよ。
Doesn't matter if you're a child or an adult when you have a criminal record. What?
こういう場合、普通の子なら注意で済むわ。
For an ordinary child in this situation, I'd simply tell them to be careful.
でもあなたの過去を知った警察官ならほぼ間違いなく調書を取る。
But any police officer who knows your past would almost certainly take it into consideration.
そうなれば親だけでなく今の学校にも連絡が行くのよ。
In which case, maybe we shouldn't just contact your parents, but also your current school?
自分の軽率を理解しなさい。
Be mindful of your carelessness. Though she realized it was a harsh thing to say, Tomoe said it anyway in an attempt to shake Rena up. If she was actually up to no good, this is the point where she would turn defiant or begin acting violently. That way, her passion would give a glimpse of her real intentions regardless of how she tried to portray herself. But what if that wasn't the case? Perhaps she was doing the most heinous thing a former youth division officer could ever do. In that way, her suspicion turned to self-questioning, and then self-loathing. But just then...
して。
Hi.
え？
Huh?
どうして警察の人はレナのことそんな風に悪く言い続けるんですか？
Why do police officers keep talking bad about Rena like that?
これでもレナは、私はいっぱい反省して後悔して生まれ変わろうとやり直そうと思っているんです。
Despite everything she did, Rena has... I have a lot of regrets, and I'm trying to start over, to be reborn.
前に壊した幸せは取り戻すことなんてできないけど、だったら違う幸せを見つけよう。そして今度こそ大事にしていこうと一生懸命に頑張っているつもりなんです。
The happiness I destroyed before can never be regained, but in that case I've been trying my best to find new happiness, and to cherish it this time.
なのに、どうして警察の人はそれを分かってくれないんですか？
Yet, why can't you police officers understand that?
それは。
Well...
それとも、まだ足りないんですか？
Or is that still not enough?
反省して罪を償っているように見てもらえないんですか？
Can't you see I'm feeling remorse and atoning for my sins?
だったら私はどんな罰を受ければ納得してもらえるんですか？
Then what kind of punishment must I endure before you'll understand?
それとも、私にはもう幸せになる権利なんてないんですか？
Or do I simply no longer have a right to be happy? Oh, frozen Tomoe. Rena's accusations had Tomoe at a loss for words. There was no anger or aggression in her voice. In fact, all that was there was the sound of one being torn apart by grief. regret for her sins, sorrow for her past, and a sense of loss.
分かっています。
I already understand.
私が傷つけた友達、迷惑をかけてしまった人たちはもっともっと苦しんで悲しい思いをしているんだって。
The friends I hurt and the people I caused trouble for are suffering and sadder than I ever could be.
自分でめちゃめちゃにしておいて知らん顔で逃げてきてしまったことは卑怯で恥知らずな最低の行為だって。
It's a cowardly, shameless, despicable act to make a mess of things and then run away like you had nothing to do with it.
今さら謝ってももう遅い。
Even if I apologize now, it's already too late.
誰も許してくれない。
Nobody will forgive me.
そして何かあったら真っ先に疑われる。
And if something happens, I'll be the first they suspect.
どんなに言い訳しても簡単には信じてもらえない。
No matter what excuses I make, they won't believe me that easily.
竜宮さん。
Ryuugu-san.
でもだったら私はどうすればいいんですか？
But if that's the case, what am I supposed to do?
私が壊したガラスのように粉々になればいいんですか？
Fall to pieces like the glass I shattered?
私がひどいことをした友達と同じ傷を負えば納得してもらえるんですか？
If I suffered the same wounds as the friends I hurt, would that be enough to satisfy everyone?
それならなんでそうしてくれなかったんですか？
In that case, why didn't you do it?
私これでも犯した罪と同じ罰を受けるつもりでいたのに。
Even though I should have received the same punishment for the crimes I committed.
なんで
Why? Why? Rena's voice was gradually getting lower, heavier, and more murky. Her eyes had previously been staring intently at Tomoe, but were now gazing downward. And then, when the sniffling soreness in her throat reached her ears, she looked up, with tears overflowing from her dark eyes. As soon as Tomoe released her hand, Rena collapsed on the spot, sobbing with her hands over her face. Looking down at her like that, Tomoe felt intense regret and reproach after realizing she had made such a tremendous misunderstanding and mistake all this time. Since the girl had attacked her, she thought her heartless. She thought of her as the girl who tried to bomb her car, so she couldn't view her appropriately as a girl of her age.
でもそうじゃない。そうじゃなかったんだ。
But that's not right. That wasn't the case. Rena Ryuugu, she too was still suffering from her past, always thinking of the sins she committed, the irreversible mistakes she made, and constantly feeling a sense of guilt over the fact that she had never received the punishment she deserved. Based on what Oishi said, she had a bright, cheerful demeanor when she was spending time with her classmates, but on the other hand, she also had very unusual hobbies. At first glance, those two notions seemed completely contradictory, but tracing them back, they both originate from the same general ideas. Repenting for her past, focusing on the present, and anxiety about the future.
竜宮さん。
Ryuugu-san, if you're unable to hear the pain and suffering of your wounds, is it cowardly to look away? Did I say hear? If you're unable to bear the pain and suffering, I was like, you're unable to hear the pain and suffering of your... Thought it sort of made sense. Bear the pain and suffering of your wounds. Is it cowardly to look away? Is it unfair? Tomoe had no right to say one way or the other. And if that's the case, then...
あの子が憎いとか悔しいって気持ちはすごくあるけど、でもやっぱりあの子のことを信じてあげたい。
I still hate her and resent what she did, but in the end, I still want to believe in her.
そして今度こそ私は自分にできることをしたい。
And this time, I want to do everything I can.
言い合ってぶつけ合って最後はあの子を許してあげたい。
Talk to each other, argue with each other, and I want to finally forgive her.
それが私の本心です。
That's how I truly feel.
ごめんなさい。
I'm sorry.
カッとなってひどいことを言い過ぎた。
I got carried away and said some things I shouldn't have.
あなたはもう十分に罰を受けたのに、それに追い打ちをかけるようなことをしてしまった。
You've already endured enough punishment. There's no need for me to keep tearing you down like that.
本当にごめんなさい。
I'm really sorry. After saying that, Tomoe released all her tension, then walked over to Rena and knelt down to gently hand her a handkerchief. She just stared at it for a while, but eventually she quietly grabbed it and wiped away her non-stop, overflowing tears.
尾崎渚さんに会いに来たのね。
You came to see Nagisa Ozaki-san, right?
はい。
Yes. Rena's head was turned down, and she was choking back sobs as she lightly nodded to Tomoe. Seeing her up close, her body looked very innocent and delicate. There was no trace of the criminal from the assault incident who sent several students to the hospital. She was a completely ordinary girl.
この一連の反応、演技とはとても思えない。
Her reactions don't seem like acting. Of course, there was a non-zero chance that this was all camouflage, and that her real intentions were far darker. Nevertheless, Tomoe couldn't imagine that a girl exuding such heartfelt sentiment could be so shrewd. No, maybe she didn't want to think so, because if she doubted even that, she wouldn't be able to believe in anything in the future.
渚さんとはちょっとした知り合いでね。
Nagisa-san was something of an acquaintance of mine.
あなたに会いたがっていたわ。
She,
とっても。
she wanted to meet you very much. Huh?
相談に乗ったこともあるの。
She came to me asking for advice about it.
あなたから電話をもらったこと。すごく喜んでいた。
She was so happy when she received that call from you.
渚ちゃんが。
Nagisa-chan was... Rena pulled the soaked handkerchief away from her eyes and stared at Tomoe, who was gazing at her with a far gentler expression than before. She was able to set aside her caution because Tomoe was sincere enough to kneel down on the soil to match eye level with her, showing no concern over getting dirty in the process. And also because...
渚ちゃんはこの人のことを。
Nagisa-chan knows this lady? The Nagisa that Rena knew was very cheerful but also very shy. No matter the age of the person she was speaking to, she wasn't one to casually reveal secrets like that. So, if Nagisa told her about the phone call from Rena, she must have really trusted her.
だからね、私はあなたに対して彼女以上に怒りを感じていたんだと思う。
So, well, I think I was more angry with you than she was.
こんなに優しくて友達思いの渚さんと一方的に関係を絶っていなくなってしまうなんてひどい子だって。
I was thinking she must be a terrible girl to cut all ties with and vanish from someone as kind and caring about her friends as Nagisa-san.
あなたのことをよく知りもせずに勝手にそう思っていた。
I got that idea in my head without trying to get to know you.
そのせいで最初からマイナスの印象を持ってあなたに話しかけてしまった。
That's why I was speaking to you with a negative outlook even from the beginning.
ごめんなさい。
I'm sorry.
刑事さん。
Detective? Upon seeing Tomoe plainly and sincerely bow her head in front of her, Rena stopped crying and began to calm herself. She felt like she could understand why Nagisa thought so highly of this detective.
謝りたかった。
I wanted to apologize.
え?
Huh? Then, opening her heart, Rena spat out the words that she'd been holding in all this time.
本当はすごく
Really?
すごく謝りたかったんです。
Really, I wanted to apologize so much.
ひどいことをして渚ちゃんのこといっぱい傷つけて。
I did something terrible and caused Nagisa-chan so much pain.
あの子の大好きだった男の子をバットで何度も殴って大怪我させて。
I hit the boy she loved over and over with a bat and I seriously wounded him.
学校内で暴れ回ってあの子が泣いて止めるのにいっぱいガラスとか壁とか壊してめちゃめちゃにして。
I went on a rampage through the school building. Even though she was crying and telling me to stop, I shattered the windows and smashed the walls, making a total mess of the place. Even now, she sometimes saw it in her dreams. Yeah, this picture. Oh, she looks so badass. Shattered window glass covered the linoleum floor of the hallway. Her whole body was covered in scratches. She walked around with a vacant look in her eyes, and her uniform dyed in blood. She couldn't remember where she found it, but she was holding a metal bat. Rena held it in one hand, dragging it along the ground, letting out a dry rattling sound as she went. The classmates all around her all watched with terrified looks in their eyes, unable to even approach her. The adults didn't know what to do, not even the physically strong PE teacher or the annoyingly cautious older teacher. They just tried to maintain their dignity by protecting the students from her violence. Rena gazed at that pathetic sight and sneered, then let out a high-pitched laugh to scoff at them. A cruel, distorted look floated to the edge of her mouth, like she was toying with them. Ha 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 ha! Rena laughed. It was horrifying. As she continued her violent assault, she kept on cackling without showing any hesitation or kindness, like some kind of monster. Her head felt pain like it was being split open, so bad that intense vomit came rising up from the back of her throat. And what's more, that face truly was hers. Even though her hair was a mess and she was caked in blood and mud, those eyes, that nose, and that mouth were just like looking in a mirror. No, that's not it. That was undoubtedly her former self. It left an ugly mark like a nail hammered into her memory. Rena herself was the thing she most hated in the world, and most wanted to forget.
なんであんなことをしてしまったのか自分でもわからない。本当に何もわからないの。
I don't even know why I did that. Honestly, I have no idea.
でもとんでもないことをしたとはっきり理解して、それからいっぱい後悔したけど、もう全然取り返しがつかなくなっていて。
But I completely understand that I did something unreasonable, and I've regretted it a lot since then. Since them? Another typo. And yet, there's no way to undo something like that.
誰に謝ればいいのか、どれだけ謝ればいいのか考えているうちに、もう絶対誰にも許してもらえないんだと分かったら、
I kept thinking
怖くなって、恐ろしくなって。
I kept thinking about how much I wanted to apologize to everyone, but I realized nobody would ever forgive me, so I got more and more scared.
それで
And then...
竜宮さん
Ryuugu-san.
本当は謝りたかった。
I really wanted to apologize.
迷惑をかけた人たちにすぐにでも会って、心の底からいっぱい謝りたかった。
I wanted to see all the people I caused trouble for and apologize from the bottom of my heart as soon as possible.
でも大好きな友達にひどいこと言われて、あんたなんか死んじゃえって言われると思ったら、私
But when I thought about my most precious friend telling me I was a terrible person and that she wanted me to die, I
嫌われるのが、罵られるのが怖くて、だから
I was afraid of being scorned or being hated, so
わかるわ。
I understand.
その気持ちわかりたいと思う。
No, I think I want to understand that feeling.
仲の良かった友達に嫌われるのって本当に辛いことだしね。
Being hated by your dear friends is truly painful. Tomoe gently laid her hand on Rena's dirty, tear-stained hands. An endlessly spilling stream of tears dripped from above, conveying the depth of her sorrow. How could such an innocent girl have resorted to that level of violence? The confusion and doubt still smoldered in her heart like a small fire. However, in that case, she had to prove these tears were genuine. Thinking that, Tomoe raised her head and called out, Ryuugu-san.
行きましょう。会いに。
Let's go meet her. Huh?
連れて行ってあげるわ。
I'll take you there.
渚さんのところへ。
To Nagisa-san. Tossing around in her sleep, Rena suddenly noticed something unusual beside her and opened her eyes. She could vaguely recognize the backs of two chairs lined up. She didn't hear the sound of birds, but the hum of an engine and the sound of flowing wind.
よく眠れた？
Did you sleep well? Huh? Rena jumped up, tossing aside the blanket that had been covering her body. Even though it was pitch black outside when she dozed off, looking out the windshield past the passenger seat, she could see the sun shining bright as it rose beyond the ridgeline of the mountains.
私寝ていましたか？
I fell asleep?
ええ、ぐっすりと。
Yes, you were sleeping soundly.
疲れていたのね。
You must have been really tired.
まだ着くまで時間があるから、 もう少し寝ていてもいいわよ。
It'll still be a while longer before we arrive, so feel free to get a little more rest.
いえ、もういいです。
No, I've had plenty.
すみません。
Thanks. Rena neatly folded the rumpled blanket and set it aside, then took a seat. Really, she was still feeling sleepy, but she just couldn't relax.
ずっと運転されてたんですか？
Have you been driving this whole time?
まさか。一度ちょっと休んだわよ。
No way. I took a break at some point.
サービスエリアによって10分ほど寝て、
I stopped at a service area and got 10 minutes of rest or so.
その毛布かけてあげたの。覚えてない？
That's when I gave you that blanket. You don't remember that?
すみません。
Sorry. Rena apologetically shrugged her shoulders, but at the same time, she seemed uncomfortable. It's true that she was worried about her family and about Nagisa, and that she hadn't gotten a good night's rest in a while, but she had never ever slept that deeply in the backseat of a stranger's car. Not to mention, she was shown this kindness from a police officer. It was like she was riding in the car of an enemy, even though it was a relief to learn that she knew Nagisa for a while after. Even though it was a relief to learn that she knew Nagisa for a while after waking up, it still felt like a dream.
ひょっとして。
Maybe. Suddenly, Rena had a thought. This detective named Minai knew about her past, so she wondered if she was prepared to reopen it. When she came to Hinamizawa, no matter how much fun she was having with her close friends, somewhere in her heart she had the illusion it was all an act. That was when she decided to forget her past and started calling herself Rena Ryuugu. Someone who likes cute things, who is kind to everyone, and tries her very best at everything. That was the sort of ideal girl Rena always strived to be. Thanks to that, she was fortunate enough to gain new friends. And not just people who are fun to play with, but allies who are willing to help her when she's in trouble. Just the other day, they were kind enough to help her before the situation would have become rough at home.
今の私は幸せだと思う。
I think right now, I'm happy.
それはよくわかっている。
I understand that much. But, on the other hand, she hated the source of all of her old problems, the existence known as Rena Ryuugu, and for that reason, she decided that all proof of the over a decade she lived under that old name should disappear. And she was afraid of her new friends learning about her time in Ibaraki. So she started subconsciously developing resistance to letting her true feelings show to them.
でも、それじゃいけないんだ。
But that's not right.
それをみんなが教えてくれた。
That's what everyone taught me. Keiichi, Rika, and Mion, they were all worried about her holding everything in, and Satoko suddenly asked if they could have a sleepover just before the incident, probably because she knew something was wrong. Plus, Keiichi and the others only learned about the situation with Rina Mamiya because Shion told them in the first place. She placed a hand on her chest and took a light breath. That's right, she had to mark the end of her old self. It's not about forgetting it or throwing it away. She had to face it steadfastly, take it, and digest it into her current self.
だから私は渚ちゃんに会う。
So I decided to go see Nagisa-chan. No matter what terrible things she may say, even if she scolded her and vented her rage at her, she didn't mind. No matter how hard or painful it may be, or if I don't start there, I won't be able to move forward. With that determination lingering in the bottom of her heart, Rena raised her head and looked forward.
ごめんなさいね。
I'm sorry. Huh?
学校まで休ませて遠くに連れ出して。
For making you take a day off school and bringing you this far out.
先生に
Oh,
は
I'm
伝え
sure
なくて
she's so
大
upset
丈夫
about that. Come on, Tomoe. Are you sure? You shouldn't tell your teacher?
はい。
Oh, yes.
みーちゃん。いえ、友達がうまく伝えてくれるって。
Police-assisted day of hooky at school. Me-chan, I mean, a friend of mine said she'd explain things.
父にもその子の家でお泊まりして学校に行くって話しましたから。
She told my father I'd be staying at her house and that we'd go to school together.
そう。
I see. Gently gazing at Rena through the rearview mirror, Tomoe's thoughts were somewhere else. The Mi-chan she referred to was probably her best friend Mion Sonozaki, the acting head of the Sonozaki family and leader of the three families. But thanks to that, Tomoe had another concern. Being able to invent facts about a student's absence meant that she could also easily manufacture proof of someone's disappearance. I mean, In fact, it's not true. She heard from Oishi, a boy went missing a few days after Watagashi last year, and she suspected it was a plot orchestrated by the Sonozaki family. In which case, wouldn't the fact that Rena is spending time with a police officer potentially create unnecessary misunderstandings that could endanger her?
考えすぎかな。
Maybe I'm overthinking it. Rena used a payphone to contact her friend Mion, and Tomoe was listening in beside her, but she didn't say anything about the police, and they didn't seem to be speaking in code words. The person on the other end of the phone probably understood that Rena was simply catching up with an old friend, and having so much fun it was worth taking a day off school.
むしろ花田くんと連絡が取れなかったのが手落ちだったかな。
More importantly, I wonder why I couldn't get in touch with Hanada-kun. Unfortunately, the information center was busy, so all she could do was leave a message telling him to contact her. Nevertheless, it's a little tough not hearing anything from the other side. She was at least able to carry a pager with her back when she worked at Kakuji Station.
何？
What is it?
どこへ連れて行ってくれるんですか？
Where are you taking me?
もうすぐ東京だって。
We're almost at Tokyo. Just as Rena said, the sign they drove past showed the distance to Tokyo. It was early morning on a weekday, so there wasn't much traffic. They'd be able to reach their destination in just a few hours.
言った通り、渚さんのところよ。
Just like I told you, we're heading to Nagisa-san.
電車だとちょっと行きにくい場所にあるからね。
It's a little difficult to get there by train.
平日に押しかけて迷惑じゃないでしょうか。
Wouldn't it be a bother to show up on a weekday?
渚ちゃんにも都合があるだろうし、それに学校だって。
It would probably be inconvenient for Nagisa-chan, and she should be at school.
大丈夫よ。
It'll be alright.
あなたのことずっと待ってくれ
Oh
ているから。
man, is this gonna be heartbreaking? She's always waiting for you.
ずっとね。
I can feel the tears potentially coming. Always. Huh? Eventually, after passing through several toll gates, Tomoe's car turned off the expressway and onto a national highway. Then, they proceeded lightly down a few roads with minimal traffic, and the scenery gradually transformed from an unfamiliar city to a desolate small-town landscape. The number of traffic lights was gradually decreasing, the tall buildings were gone, and there were sometimes even wide fields spread around. Not about. In a sense, the scenery conveyed a peaceful atmosphere, but for some reason, Rena couldn't help but feel a lingering unease. And then...
着いたわ。
We're here. Huh? Tomoe pulled her car into a small parking lot and came to a stop in a very quiet rural area with few residential buildings nearby. After looking at the sign by the entrance, Rena realized the worst scenario she imagined while on the way here was the truth. She began trembling. While grabbing the headrest of the front passenger seat and leaning out from the back seat, Rena's whole body was quivering so intensely she couldn't take a single step, because the sign right before her eyes read, Musashigawa Memorial Park. The name made it clear this was a cemetery. I thought so. Seeing her eyes open wide and her face turn pale, Tomoe was convinced. This girl knew nothing about the current Nagisa. She hadn't heard anything about it.
特になしです。
Not very strongly.
無関係を装うというよりも無関心って感じでしたよ。
It's more like she was genuinely apathetic to the news rather than just pretending it had nothing to do with her. Despite his words echoing inside Tomoe's head, the situation actually proved the opposite. But now, she had an obligation to fulfill, which was more important than that.
さあ、竜宮さん。
Come on, Ryuugu-san.
行きましょう。
Let's go.
辛いかもしれないけど、しっかりして。
It may be painful, but stay firm.
彼女もきっとあなたのことを待っていると思うから。
I'm certain she's waiting for you.
ここよ。
Right here. Right before her eyes was a fairly new tombstone. Here lies the Ozaki family, and the black letters engraved in the tablet beside it hadn't yet been faded by weathering, so they were easy to read. Beep. Huh? Oh, it can't be true! Rena had been frozen in place, but then like flipping a switch, she rushed to the side of the grave and shouted so loud it sounded like blood was spewing from her throat. And then she clung to the tombstone and rubbed her forehead against it while crying. Nagisa-chan! Nagisa-chan! Why? Why? Rena raised her wet, crying face to once again look at the tablet, and was surprised when she suddenly saw the date. Nagisa Osaki died October 14th, 1982. That day was the same day she promised to meet Nagisa. Finally realizing why she never came to Okinomiya, Rena clawed at her hair and wailed. It can't be. It can't be. No. No.
Ryuugu-san.
Ryuugu-san. Why? Why is Nagisa-chan? How did this happen to Nagisa-chan? Please tell me, detective. Was she sick? Was it an accident? Or maybe... No way, it can't be. Clinging to Tomoe's hand on her shoulder for comfort, Rena squeezed her voice to ask it that in a forceful tone. If she said it was murder, this girl would likely begin frantically hunting the killer, intending to personally kill them. So?
事故よ。
It was an accident.
帰宅途中で車にひかれてね。
She was struck by a car on her way home. Tomoe herself didn't believe that, but she had no choice but to answer that way, and Rena's reaction was unequivocal proof that she wasn't involved in Nagisa's incident. Rena slumped down on the spot and leaned toward the gravestone beside her with a dejected look on her face, reaching out to the tablet with no regard for her skirt getting dirty, just to touch it. Several difficult kanji were spelled out there, detailing a posthumous name. But she didn't understand what they meant. She didn't want to. But as she came to realize that those characters represented the name of her dear friend, the sadness and despair in her chest grew to crushing levels, and even more tears came overflowing. I wanted to apologize. I wanted to apologize to Nagisa-chan for so long. Rena muttered that in a faint voice that seemed like it was about to fade away. The person to whom she wished to convey those words was no longer in this world. I wanted to apologize for so long. To apologize for the terrible things I did, for the awful things I said, and for leaving without saying a word. And then for not saying anything to her afterwards, and then... I built up the courage, enough courage to call her on the phone. When that happened, and I was able to speak with her, I was so happy. I wanted her to tell me we could meet up again, and if we did, I didn't care what she said or did to me, even if she killed me. Phew.
そう覚悟してでも私は渚ちゃんに会いたかった。
I thought that, and even though I was prepared for it, I still wanted to see Nagisa-chan again.
なのに
And yet, the day when they were scheduled to meet one another, Rena kept waiting for a long, long time. Time passed all the way into the evening. Even after dark, after the train stopped running, she kept on waiting. Maybe she got the date wrong, so she thought about waiting until the next day. But in the end, Nagisa never came. Rena felt crushed by the weight of her sins and cried. She left Okinomiya Station and kept on walking and walking, a distance that would take hours by bus, crying all the way. For the next few days, she was bedridden with a fever, and when the fever receded, she finally regained a little strength. Rena thought it over. This must have been her punishment. Thinking that, she decided this pain was a cross she'd have to bear for the rest of her life. However, her true punishment wasn't that. What she thought of all this time as a harsh punishment actually seemed easy compared to this cruelty.
Ryuugu-san.
Ryuugu-san.
刑事さん、
Detective?
私はどうしたらいいんですか？
What should I do?
私はもう許してもらえないんですか？
Can I no longer be forgiven?
どうやったら私、この罪を償うことができるんですか？
What can I do to make amends for my sins? Oh, this is kind of sad. Well,
死刑になればいいんですか？
should I be sentenced to death?
みんなにしてしまったことと同じ報いをこの体に受ければいいんですか？
Should this body suffer the same fate inflicted on others?
犯罪者はいつまでも何をやってもずっと犯罪者なんですか？
Are criminals forever branded with their crimes no matter what they do? Rena with the deeply philosophical questions going on here. Tomoe's like, yee.
私、もうわからない。
I don't understand anymore.
どうしたらいいのか、何をすればいいのか、もうわからない。
What should I do? What is the right thing to do? I don't understand anymore. In response to Reina's heartbroken question, Tomoe could only turn her head down and bite her lip. It's perfectly natural to punish people for their transgressions, but if there's nobody there to offer them forgiveness, the criminal will be forced to suffer the rest of their life with the weight of their sins on their conscience. Of course, that can be seen as their true punishment, and in Reina's Ryuugu's case, the opportunity to obtain forgiveness has already been lost forever. There's no greater punishment, and if so, will she have to continue her entire life without ever being forgiven?
そんなことはない。
That can't be. Tomoe shook her head. She was a police officer, not an avenger. The difference between them was that there were other important duties she had a responsibility to fulfill beyond catching criminals. And that was...
Ryuugu-san.
Ryuugu-san.
これを読んで。
Read this. After saying that, Tomoe pulled a single envelope from her jacket pocket and held it out to Reina. The address had her name on it, and the sender was Nagisa.
これは
What is this?
渚さんが最後に私にくれた手紙よ。
The very last letter Nagisa-san sent me.
あなたにだけは読んでもらいたいの。
I think you should read it.
渚ちゃんが
From Nagisa-chan? She pulled a bundle of notepaper out from the envelope and spread it out before Reina. The writing on the page was nostalgic and could easily be recognized as Nagisa's handiwork. Reina once again raised her head to look up at Tomoe. Then, after receiving a nod of affirmation, she dropped her eyes back to the paper and started reading. Oh, they're giving her the faded ghost treatment. Dear Detective Minai-sama.
先日はいろいろと私のためにご尽力いただきまして本当にありがとうございました。
Thank you very much for working so hard and doing so much for me the other day.
あの後何度かお電話を差し上げたのですがタイミングが悪く その都度外出中とのことでしたので、お手紙をお送りすることにしました。
I've tried calling you several times since then, but it was always bad timing and you were out, so I decided to send a letter instead.
実はご報告があります。
In fact, I have something to report.
先日レイナと電話にて話をすることができました。
I was able to talk with Rena over the phone the other day.
それも信じられないことに、私からかけたわけじゃありません。
It's hard to believe, but I wasn't the one who made the phone call.
レイナからかかってきたんです。
Rena was the one who called me.
でも私にはあまりにも突然すぎて、それにレイナもなんだかぎこちない感じで。
But it was all too sudden for me, and maybe for Rena too, so I felt a little awkward.
お互いに何から話していいのかわからず、結局あまり会話できなかったのが残念でしたが、それでも一度会ってお互いにゆっくり話をしようということになりました。
After all this time, we didn't know what to talk about, so unfortunately we didn't talk much. But we decided that we should meet up again so we can talk more leisurely.
なぜあんな事件を起こしてしまったのか。
Why did she cause that incident?
なぜ何も言わずに黙っていなくなってしまったのか。
Why did she leave without saying a word about it?
そして今、お互いどんな思いを抱えて暮らしているのか。
And what did we think of each other now, after living far apart?
そのことを会った時に思い切ってぶつけてみようと考えています。
Those are the things I'm thinking of asking when we meet up.
もちろんそのことで私もレイナも過去の傷をさらに深めてしまうかもしれない。
Of course, that may very well reopen old wounds for both Rena and me.
そしてひょっとしたらやっぱり会わなければよかったと後悔するかもしれないという不安は今でもあります。
And there's still a chance that meeting her ultimately won't be for the best, so I'm still worried I may regret it.
でも私はやっぱりレイナと話をすることから始めたいんです。
But I still want to start out by talking with Rena again.
贖罪とか懺悔とかそんなものはもういらない。
Atonement? Confessions? Those no longer matter to me.
何もかも打ち明けて話してぶつけ合って、それでもレイナが私の友達でいてくれるかを私はあの子に尋ねたい。
We can talk and argue and share everything, but I still want to ask Rena to be my friend.
そして私も今度こそ本当の意味であの子の友達になれるかを確かめたい。
And I want to make sure I can truly become friends with her this time.
だって私は今でもレイナのことが大好きだから。
Because I still love Rena.
レイナのせいで悲しいことも味わったけど、彼女との楽しい思い出も間違いなくたくさんあるんです。
Rena did cause me sadness, but there are definitely a lot of fun memories we had together.
その思いを私はあの子に伝えたい。
I want to communicate that to her.
そしてあの子が表に出せなかった悩みや苦しみを受け止めてあげたい。
And I want to be able to accept her despite the problems and the pain she caused.
あの子が昔私にそうしてくれたように。
Just like she did for me, so long ago.
会った時あの子は笑ってくれるかな。
Do you think she'll laugh when we meet up?
話す時の癖はまだ残っているかな。
Does she still have that particular speaking habit?
いろんな不安だらけだけど、でもそれと同じくらい期待もあります。
I'm really nervous, but at the same time, I'm full of anticipation.
だから私は信じてレイナと会ってきます。
So I'll believe, and I'll meet with Rena.
そして刑事さんにいい報告ができるよう頑張っていきたいと思っています。
And I want to do my best so I can give you good news, Detective.
結果は後日お電話にてご報告します。
I'll call you later to share the results.
もしお忙しくてまた連絡が行き違うようでしたら、自宅の電話番号を書いておきましたので、お手すきの時にでもお電話をいただけましたらとても嬉しいです。
In case you're busy and have trouble getting in touch with you again, I wrote down my home phone number. I'd be happy to receive a call anytime you'd like.
それではまた。
Anyway, that's all.
今度お会いできた時には園芸部で一番綺麗なお花を持っていきますので、楽しみにしていてください。
Next time we meet, I'll bring you the most beautiful flowers from the gardening club, so look forward to it.
尾崎渚。
Nagisa Osaki. The Nagisa, Tomoe, Rena, like, triangle. It's just so, it's so sad. It's sad. Oh, I care. Nagisa-chan. Nagisa-chan. Her dripping tears poured down, leaving stains on the letter. But these tears were different from the ones from earlier. They were purely happy, truly grateful, and also deeply painful, heartrending, and sad that she wouldn't be able to convey those feelings. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Nagisa-chan. I always wanted to tell you, and yet... I'm sure it made it through to her.
Nagisa-san wa anata no taisetsu na tomodachi nan dakara.
Because Nagisa-san is your dear friend. Thank you. I'll always be grateful to have you as a friend. Please forgive me, and thank you so much, Nagisa-chan. Nagisa's tender thoughts dispelled the darkness in Reina's heart, brightly illuminating it. It didn't mean she was forgiven. That didn't mean her sin was gone. However, she found out that someone she loved cared just as deeply about her all this time, and that alone made her tremendously happy and grateful. Reina held the letter against her chest, feeling the warmth of the tears. Ryuugu-san, are you alright? Yes. Rena wiped her puffy red eyes with the handkerchief over and over again, but she answered back with a nod. In all likelihood, the sorrow of this day would continue to eat at her heart for a while longer. Nevertheless, Tomoe believed that Rena Ryuugu would be able to move forward after these wounds healed. Atoning for your sin doesn't mean forgetting it. Huh? I think forgetting it is the worst thing you can do. Because if you forget, you lose the ability to reflect on how your mistakes caused you to behave that way. So, you have to remember your sins, to always think strongly about doing good things to make up for your past mistakes. Someone once said that the more sorrows you experience, the kinder you can be to others, probably because only then can you truly sympathize with the feelings of sadness in another. So, no matter how hard it may be, hold on to those memories. Don't forget, and by reflecting on them, you can cherish your precious happiness in the present, and always make the effort to protect it. And, in order to keep on remembering, you have to go on living. Keep on living happily, always. Happy enough to fill her share too. I don't deserve that. In fact, someone like me... You will be. You have to be. Because otherwise, Nagisa-san was only born into this world to bring you unhappiness. Do you wish to look back on your time you spent living with your precious friend and think it was all pointless?
竜宮さん、
Ryuugu-san.
もしそれでも心が咎めるというのなら、あなたは他の友達のために、その幸せのためにもっともっと頑張りなさい。
If your conscience is still hounding you, then you should do your best for your other friends for the sake of that happiness.
そしてもう二度と今日のような後悔をしないために、伝えるべきものはちゃんと伝えて、自分は一人じゃないって信じる勇気を持ちなさい。
And be able to say what you need to say, so you never have any more regrets like you had today. Have the courage to believe you're not alone.
それで償いができるんですか？
That way, I can atone for it?
亡くなった人がどう思っても、その友達があなたを許すわ。
Regardless of what the dead may think, your friends will forgive you.
自分のために頑張ってくれた優しいあなたを認めてくれるわ。
They can appreciate that you did the best you could for yourself and accept your kindness.
そして私もあなたのことを許してあげられる気がする。
And I, at least, feel that I can forgive you. Tomoe gently held her hand out as she said that. Rena just stared at it for a while, unable to comprehend what it meant. But after a while, she placed her hand on top and grabbed it back.
ね。
Okay.
はい。
Yes. She was still lost and confused, with sadness and guilt continuing to nag at her. Nevertheless, feeling swept up by Tomoe's words, a gentle smile finally reappeared on Reina's face. And at the same time, the heavy weight bearing down on her shoulders until now finally disappeared, and a radiant sensation spread all the way to her heart. Rena and Nagisa, these two close friends, could never meet again. Thinking about that made Tomoe feel trapped by regret and self-loathing. But now, at least for the moment, she wanted to pray for Rena Ryuugu's happiness. Tomoe believed that until the very end. That's what Nagisa would have wanted for her best friend.
帰りましょう。
Let's head back.
立てる？
Can you stand?
はい。
Yes. Rena tried to get up, but it was too much for her legs to bear, so she immediately wavered and staggered. Tomoe tried to support her, but thanks to the momentum, they both stumbled and fell to the ground. Ow!
ごめんなさい、私。
I'm sorry.
ああ、いいのは気にしないで。
It's okay. Don't worry about it. Rena suddenly looked down and noticed her knees. They must have scraped against the gravel or something when she fell because she was lightly bleeding.
怪我しちゃったみたいね。
Looks like you got hurt.
ちょっと待ってて。絆創膏を。
Hold on a sec. I'll get you a bandage. That moment, a pill packet spilled out from Tomoe's front pocket. Rena suddenly tilted her head when she saw it, but then she gasped and froze.
何？
What is it?
どうしたの？竜宮さん。
Ryuugu-san, what's wrong?
その薬、まさか。
No way. That medicine. Rena leaned forward and picked up the medicine pack that had fallen to the ground. Then, after flipping it over to confirm the color of the capsules, she opened her eyes even wider in shock.
やっぱり、これ PC。
I knew it. This is PC.
どうして刑事さんがそれを？
Detective, why do you have this?
知ってるの？この薬のこと。
You know this medicine?
この薬、私ちょっと前まで飲んでいました。
I was taking this medicine until a little while ago.
それで。
And
どうしたの？竜宮さん。
what is it, Ryuugu-san?
これのせいで私、いつも急に自分がわからなくなって。
Because of this, I would suddenly lose myself.
あの時もこれを飲んで、それで。
Just like that time I took this medicine and...
あの時。
That time? Oh, hell yeah. Those words made Tomoe suddenly catch her breath.
まさか、それって茨城の傷害事件で？
No way! You mean the assault in Ibaraki? Rena's face turned completely pale, and she nodded. When Tomoe heard that, it felt like the disparate puzzle pieces inside her head were finally snapping together. Natsumi Kimiyoshi's sudden transformation. Rena Ryuugu's assault incident in Ibaraki. Even though the incident seemed completely unrelated aside from the fact that the two of them were from Hinamasawa, there was a solid verifiable connection between them. And the link binding them together was this medication that Rena just referred to as PC.
Ryuugu-san.
Ryuugu-san! Huh?
はい。
Yes?
ちょっとこの後寄り道してもいいかしら。
Do you mind if we take a small detour after this?
あなたの力が必要なの。お願い。
There's something I need your help with. Please. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, what a good chunk of Higurashi we read tonight. If I do say so myself. Ah. Heartfelt. Exciting little ending. Oh, wait, hold up. We're ending there. I'm just gonna save over this again. Bam. Alright, almost 3 hours of reading here today on a Tuesday. Hope you enjoyed. I really liked that stretch. That was great. We had the showdown of Tomoe and Rena, and then the sad part there at the end, and then the end there, Tomoe being like, just a coincidence. Rena catches the pill bottle and is like, oh, that might be the missing piece we need to solve this. Let's see. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We should do another hour of Higurashi reading, assuming I start early enough and on time. And then we should read Process of Elimination, our third stream of Process of Elimination. Again, very interesting game. Very excited to see how that unfolds early game. If for some reason, I don't anticipate it necessarily being the case, but on the off chance that we start too late tomorrow or something, then we'll just go to Process of Elimination, and I'll feel bad about myself about missing the Higurashi hour of reading that I said I would do all this week. But I don't anticipate it being the case, but there's always a chance. But assuming I start early enough and on time enough, we'll read in another hour of Higurashi, plugging away on that. So yeah, more and more Higurashi this week. Process of Elimination on Wednesday, so tomorrow after, and then no stream Thursday as always, and then Friday should be Silk Song. So excited to play, of course, more of that. A lot of fun games. Several fun games happening on the channel at this moment. If you're watching Higurashi and you're like, oh, I want to listen to him start in early on another visual novel game, Danganronpa like, kinda, sorta, and it's a visual novel and it has fully Japanese voice acting and mystery and death and everything. Like I've been saying, Process of Elimination has just started on the channel. I would highly recommend that. It's a fun watch. It's only been 2 streams so far. We'll do a 3rd stream of it tomorrow, but it would scratch the same itch if you're interested in this. Process of Elimination could be interesting. And also, of course, Silk Song needs no real introduction. We're only 3 streams into that so far, and then 4th stream will be on Friday. That's a fun series as well, I think. Obviously, different vibe than me reading a visual novel, but I think it's pretty chill. You can watch me play an actual game that requires a bit of skill. I would say I'm doing decently fine so far. I'm not too far. I think we're a little under 10 hours into the game. But that's a fun watch as well, I would think. Whether you're already ahead of me in Silk Song or you don't plan on playing Silk Song, I think both of those cases then make for a great way to watch me on this. And you already watch me playing and reading Higurashi. Maybe give another game on the channel a look. You know, just recommending. Maybe you might find something you like, or check many of the millions of other games I've played on this channel over the last. How long have I been doing this? 7 years, 8 years. Something like that. you're bound to find something you like. Peruse the playlists. Scroll through the playlists. Pick a random one. Close your eyes. Scroll through the playlist on my channel on YouTube. Stop scrolling. Pick one. You might discover a new favorite. That's all I would recommend. Don't go too far back though. If you go too far back, you're gonna start entering what I call the scuffed era. The quality is gonna go lower and lower the earlier you go, but they're there if you want them. See my more humble beginnings, if you so care. But I can't attest to the quality of those. So again, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Stay safe. Stay well. I'll be back tomorrow. Should be back on tomorrow. Process of elimination. Probably an hour of Higurashi as well. Until then.